The Wild West isn't just about historical heroes and epic battles. It's also a world of secrets, mysteries, and unexplained events. Something mystical lurks around every corner, from vanished treasures to ghosts haunting abandoned towns. In this episode, we delve into 20 of the most mysterious stories of the Wild West. The Lost Treasure of Jesse James. Jesse James is a name that will forever remain in history as a symbol of the Wild West. He was more than just a bandit, but a true legend whose name inspired both fear and admiration. He was born in 1847 in Missouri. From a very early age, Jesse's life was marked by violence and crime, and his name became synonymous with bank and train robberies. But what attracted people most wasn't his crimes, but rumors of the treasure he left behind. Jesse James, according to many, hid untold riches before his death. Since his death in 1882, when he was shot by his partner, Robert Forrest, legends of lost treasure have circulated. To this day, no one has been able to find these riches, and the search continues. Stories about Jesse's treasure circulate more and more each year. Some say Jesse hid his fortune in several locations, each carefully chosen in a different part of the Wild West. Theories about the treasure's location vary, but they all share one thing in common. James allegedly hid his wealth in places that were nearly inaccessible to anyone trying to find it. One of the most popular theories is that Jesse hid the gold in an underground city he built himself after successful robberies. Rumor has it that this city was hidden from prying eyes and located somewhere in the desert, but no one could find it. Some seekers claimed the city was hidden deep underground, while others believed it was underwater. There's also a theory that Jesse hid the treasure in a crypt located in the remote mountains. This location, according to eyewitnesses, was guarded not only by bandits but also by nature itself, gorges and a river that were impossible to cross. However, all attempts to discover this hidden treasure have so far been unsuccessful. No one knew the location of Jesse James's treasure, but rumors of it captivated the minds of residents of the Wild West and adventurers around the world. For decades, archaeologists and adventurers set out on expeditions, hoping to find the treasure's hidden location. However, all attempts were unsuccessful. Even modern search methods using technology and satellite imagery have yielded no results. But despite all the obstacles, the search for Jesse James's treasure continues to be the subject of much discussion and research. Perhaps the treasure truly exists and is hidden in such a way that it's impossible to find. Or perhaps it's all just a myth, perpetuated by the legend of Jesse James himself. But one thing is certain, his treasure remains one of the most enigmatic and alluring mysteries of the Wild West. Some theories even suggest that Jesse may have hidden not only money, but also valuable artifacts he stole over the years of his criminal activities. Others believe he left behind a map pointing to the treasure's location, but this map has never been found. Speculation that James somehow hid his map in a unique location or passed it on to one of his closest associates only adds to the mystique surrounding his name. The mystery of Jesse James's treasure remains unsolved, and perhaps always will be. However, his name, like his mythological wealth, continues to inspire adventurers and archaeologists who, despite years of fruitless searching, still believe in the possibility of finding traces and solving the mystery. As long as people keep searching, the myth of Jesse James's lost treasure will remain one of the most enigmatic stories of the Wild West. Ultimately, perhaps this is what makes his story so unique, not just his crimes, but also the treasure he supposedly hid. The legend of Jesse James and his immense wealth will live on, arousing the admiration and curiosity of those who dare to search for traces of it. The Ghosts of Tombstone. Tombstone, Arizona, is a town that has become a symbol of the Wild West. Here, on streets once ringing with gunshots and whistling bullets, remain not only the memories of bloody battles, but also a multitude of unexplored mysteries that have haunted people for centuries. Famed for the duel at OK Corral and the brutal times when the town was shrouded in violence, Tombstone has become a true magnet for those seeking answers to unanswered questions. Every corner of this town is said to harbor something supernatural. Many residents, as well as tourists, claim to sense the presence of spirits that Tombstone can't seem to let go. One of the most famous ghosts is considered to be the spirit of Virgil Earp, the older brother of Wyatt Earp, a participant in the famous duel at OK Corral. Since Virgil's death in 1892, His spirit supposedly continues to roam the town streets. He has been seen near the memorial to the duel, as well as in the old courthouse where he once served as sheriff. Some say they sense his presence in the silence of the night, when every step on the cobblestones seems like an echo of bygone years. However, Virgil Earp wasn't the only one to become part of Tombstone's mystical atmosphere. The town, once a center of trade and silver mining, attracted not only entrepreneurs and farmers, but also outlaws. Stories of these people, of how they died, perished in battle, or met violent ends, have not faded with the passage of time. Ghosts, according to rumors, continue to wander restlessly along the streets where destinies were once bound by blood and weapons. One of the most famous ghosts, still haunting locals, is the ghost of someone known as Mr. Kouras. This man was involved in one of the most brutal skirmishes on the streets of Tombstone, and his death, like his life, was steeped in violence. After his murder, his spirit became a frequent guest of local residents. At night, he is often seen in the places where he once conducted his business, as well as in the abandoned houses that remain of the town's former wealth. Locals say his image seems carved from the very shadows, and his eyes, empty and full of fear, follow their every move. But the strangest and most mysterious remains the old hotel, once home to notorious criminals and their accomplices. Rumors of the hotel being haunted began circulating after residents began noticing strange phenomena at night. The sound of footsteps, creaking of floorboards, and then disappearing objects. All these became common occurrences in this place. The spirit of one of the gangsters, Chuck Barton, is said to haunt the hallways, haunting those who dared to spend the night. His figure could be seen at a window or on a balcony, but if one approached, he would vanish into thin air like smoke. Tombstone is not only a town where many tragedies have occurred, but also a place where traces of those who were not ready to leave this world can still be found. Some claim to have seen strange lights in the sky, which could be the manifestation of a soul that has found no peace. Local elders say that sometimes, especially on foggy nights, strange laughter can be heard from the streets, or what seems like whispers spoken in dark alleys. Many rumors circulate about an old cemetery located outside the city. It is said to be the final resting place of many who died in urban skirmishes. This place, hidden from the public eye, attracts lovers of the supernatural. Some believe the cemetery contains the graves of not only ordinary people, but also those involved in murders that destroyed entire families. No less intriguing is the story of how a group of explorers visiting Tombstone once went to an old farmhouse to search for signs of ghosts. They discovered a hidden spot in the ground that later turned out to be the home of several dead bandits. According to local legend, this was one of the bloodiest periods in the town's history. Footprints were found there, indicating that these people continued to wander among the living even after their deaths. Some of the group returned home with terrifying memories of what they had seen, and one of them claimed that after this trip, he would never forget the strange face he saw through his window that night. Today's residents of Tombstone, despite decades of rumors of ghosts, still perceive them as a part of the local culture. Tombstone has become not only a monument to the Wild West, but also a treasure trove of mystical stories that defy rational explanation. The ghosts that remain here have never found peace, and their stories will continue to fill the town as soon as the evening twilight eclipses the last rays of the sun. What is this? A mind trick, or a reality where nothing is impossible? Will Tombstone remain the mystical city where past and present collide, and the shadows of the past haunt those who dare to enter its borders? The answer to this question will likely remain a mystery until the city itself reveals its secrets to those willing to seek and believe. The mystery of the disappearance of the Donner Party. In 1846, a group of people known as the Donner Party set out on a long and arduous journey across the American continent. Their goal was simple: to find a new home in California, but what was supposed to be a routine expedition turned into one of the most tragic stories in the history of the Wild West. The Donner Party consisted of several families, totaling approximately 80 people. They chose the Sierra Nevada route, hoping it would allow them to reach California more quickly. However, for unknown reasons, their journey deviated sharply. Due to a late start and poor route selection, the group found themselves trapped in the mountains as a harsh winter set in. The weather quickly deteriorated, trapping the expedition. Instead of resuming their usual route, the party made a risky decision to try a new, previously unexplored route suggested by one of the members. This route, promised to be faster, ultimately proved deadly. With the snow still thawed, the group found themselves trapped in the harsh winter conditions. Their food supplies were rapidly running low, leaving the expedition members with no choice but to wait, hoping for rescue that never came. After several weeks in desperation, some participants began eating whatever they could get their hands on. This included skins, trees, and, eventually, the bodies of fallen expedition members. Although the exact circumstances remain unclear, there is ample evidence that cannibalism was part of survival in these conditions. The story of how people once full of hopes and dreams found themselves forced to fight for their lives, trapped by the cruelty of nature, still evokes horror. When rescue teams finally arrived, they found only a small number of survivors, exhausted and traumatized. Many were seriously ill, and some had lost their minds from hunger and torture. What truly happened to the rest, who did not survive this horror, remains a subject of debate. Some claim the party's final hours were filled with despair and panic, while others believe the survivors retained their last shreds of humanity. But ultimately, all were consumed by the darkness of the winter desert. What happened to those who remained after the rescuers retrieved the survivors? Who was to blame for the party's situation? Some blame mismanagement of the expedition, others claimed it was a miscalculation of the route. However, despite numerous investigations and discussions about who could have done things differently, the truth remains unknown. The mystery of the Donner Party's disappearance is not only a tragic tale of people caught in the elements, but also a riddle about how far a human being will go when pushed to the brink of survival. While we know many of the events in the group's life, much remains a dark veil shrouded in the history of the Wild West. The curse of the Wild West bandits. The Wild West is not only an era of heroic cowboys, but also a time of ruthless bandits who ruled over vast territories, spreading fear and cruelty. One of the most enigmatic and mystical themes of this era is the curse rumored to have haunted many notorious outlaws of the time. People who made their living through robbery and violence often found themselves trapped not only by the law, but also by unknown, dark forces that followed them. The history of the Wild West is full of not only heroic deeds, but also tragedies, and, at times, unexplained events that led people to believe in the supernatural. The lives of these outlaws, as well as their deaths, are often shrouded in mystery. For example, the fate of the famous Wyatt Earp, who, despite his legendary reputation, became the subject of one of the most terrifying curse stories. Wyatt Earp, the famous sheriff and participant in the legendary duel at OK Corral, not only earned a name as a prominent lawman, but also became embroiled in numerous dark events that haunted him. His numerous near-death encounters and brutal showdowns with outlaws earned him not only fame, but also unusual rumors surrounding curses. Among them was a story of how Earp was supposedly cursed by one of his enemies. According to legend, after failing to win a duel, this enemy cast a spell that would haunt the sheriff for the rest of his life. The fate of another famous bandit, Billy the Kid, attracted no less attention. Billy was known for his bravery and ruthlessness, but he was also surrounded by numerous myths about his death. Some believe his death was prophesied, and a theory persists that, despite the official announcement of his death in 1884, Billy survived and escaped, and that his death was merely part of a more complex plot. Some claim that it was a curse placed upon him by his enemies that led to his demise. But what if this story is more than just fiction? Furthermore, the legend of Jesse James and his treasure is also associated with a mystical curse. James, like many others, was involved in dangerous and deadly games. His death, like many others in the history of outlaws, remains shrouded in mystery. Rumor has it that James left behind several hoards that, if found, could have changed the course of history. But many treasure hunters who attempted to find these riches disappeared as soon as they approached the desired location, and their deaths often remained unexplained. The fate of a bandit named Thomas Lee was equally mysterious. He was known for his daring attacks and murders, but one day, while on yet another robbery, he vanished without a trace. Several years later, his body was found in one of the old camps, but no one could explain what happened. Rumor has it that it was the curse of an ancient Native American, whom Thomas Lee had once harmed, that led to his grisly end. Interestingly, despite all the legends and rumors of curses, many researchers attempting to unravel these mysteries often encountered difficulties. Often, searching for traces of bandits, they found themselves in places where no one dared to venture after sunset. Old mines, abandoned cabins, and deserted towns of the Wild West became sites of unexplained disappearances and strange occurrences. No one knew what lurked beyond these places, but something clearly drew people willing to seek answers to long-forgotten questions. Each of these stories leaves behind more questions than answers. Were these curses real, or did they become part of a myth that itself heightened the darkness and mystery of the Wild West? The answers remain hidden in the sands of time. But one thing is certain. As strange as it may sound, the Wild West outlaws left behind not only a bloody history, but also traces that may never be fully revealed. The mysteries of their deaths and subsequent curses still beckon adventurers, compelling them to return to these myths again and again. And so, it will continue as long as the Wild West remains a place where the most terrifying stories live in the shadows. Hidden secrets of the city of Durango. The town of Durango, nestled in the mountains of Colorado, was one of the most famous and historically rich settlements in the Wild West. Its founding in the 1860s was linked to the discovery of silver and gold deposits, and within a few years, the town had become a shining example of a typical mining settlement. But behind the outward bustle and activities associated with the exploitation of local wealth, lurked even darker and more mysterious events, attracting the attention of not only gold prospectors, but also lovers of mysticism and mystery. One of the most famous stories associated with this town concerns the disappearance of an entire family, who vanished without a trace during one of the coldest winter months. In 1879, the Miller family of 4 vanished amid a growing snowstorm. They are said to have gone into the mountains to gather firewood and never returned. When rescuers found their camp, they saw only signs of a struggle, and not a single body was found at the scene. Almost all locals, including researchers and rescuers, are certain that these disappearances were no simple accident. The most mysterious aspect of this incident is that before their disappearance, the Miller family had told locals several times about strange encounters with an unknown figure in the woods, peeping at them from behind trees. Sometimes this figure, wearing a dark cloak, remained motionless, watching their house or camp, and one night, when the Millers were trying to drive to town, they encountered him right on the road. After this incident, they became concerned and decided to strengthen the security around their house. Even more astonishing is that after the family went missing, several people claimed to have seen the ghost of a man in a cloak standing at the scene of their disappearance. This became the talk of the town and attracted the attention of those interested in supernatural events. Rumors of ghosts began to spread quickly, and soon the town itself found itself part of numerous stories about the unknown mysteries of the Wild West. Another mystery of Durango was the disappearance of gold from one of the local mines, known as Devil's Rock. Rumor had it that the mine was a source of wealth, and local miners had discovered vast deposits of gold. However, a few weeks later, as more and more people began moving to the area, the mine mysteriously sealed up, and all traces of gold vanished. Even modern researchers, using the latest technology, have been unable to find a single drop of the precious metal in the area. Some claim the place is cursed, and that the gold found there has ruined many lives. One local claimed that after attempting to find the treasure, a series of misfortunes began to strike him: a house fire, the death of relatives, and numerous illnesses. Legends of Devil's Rock have spread among the mountain dwellers, and many believe no one can retrieve the treasure from this place alive. The darkest event in the city's history was the murder of local Sheriff John Harrison. The sheriff was known for his brutality and mercilessness toward criminals, but despite this, his death left many unanswered questions. He was found dead in his office in late October 1885, and although evidence of his murder pointed to a diabolical act of foul play, the details were never fully clarified. By then, Harrison had suspected for several years that not only common criminals, but also people with dark intentions were operating in the town. Local sheriffs had been killed or disappeared, and rumors of brutal murders committed with unknown weapons began to spread throughout the city. Harrison was apparently the victim of a conspiracy using magic and shadow powers. The evidence at the crime scene couldn't be explained logically. The windows were locked from the inside, and the sheriff himself had been killed in a strange manner with an unknown substance that left marks on his body that resembled dark fingerprints. What really happened in Durango? And what dark legacy do these events conceal? The mystery of the town and its ghosts remains a mystery. And although the mountainous expanses and surrounding villages have long been forgotten, people continue to come to Durango itself, seeking to unravel the mysteries of the past and perhaps discover darker, unexplored chapters of Wild West history. The legend of the Red River. The Red River in northwest Texas is renowned not only for its historical significance, but also for the mystical events that took place along its banks in the late 19th century. This region was home to Native Americans, pioneers, and bandits, and the river, through which important trade routes passed, often witnessed bloody skirmishes and tragic incidents. But what transpired in these parts left behind not only traces of violence, but also a series of mysterious events that remain unexplained to this day. It all began in 1870 when an outlaw named William "Red" Carson appeared on the banks of the Red River. Renowned for his brutality and ability to survive in the harshest conditions, Carson quickly gained notoriety among locals. He and his gang frequently attacked wagon trains, plundered settlements, and engaged in armed clashes with law enforcement. One of the most famous stories involves an attack on a trading caravan, which was completely destroyed on one of the bridges crossing the river. As soon as law enforcement learned of the attack, they began pursuing Carson and his gang. But this is where the strangest part of the story began. The morning after the attack, the head of one of the bandits was found in the river. However, no one could explain how it got there. This was no ordinary death. According to witnesses, the body was mutilated in some unusual way, and the blood at the crime scene was completely black, which could not be explained by natural decomposition. But this was only the first in a series of tragedies associated with the Red River. Legend has it that each subsequent murder linked to Carson had no logical explanation. Sometimes his gang would disappear for weeks, returning to leave behind only corpses and strange tracks resembling those of enormous animals. Locals began to say that the Red River had become a cursed place, and Carson himself, its inexorable guardian. It was also said that after one of his attacks, Carson locked his entire gang in a cave, awaiting an attack from local sheriffs outside. That night, according to survivors, an unimaginable noise erupted in the cave, as if the very earth were shaking. In the morning, when law enforcement reached the site, they found only the bandits' corpses, but they had been radically altered, with dark marks on their skin and eyes filled with emptiness. Legend has it that one of the sheriffs even heard Carson's voice at that moment, cursing all life around him, and he himself vanished, leaving only bloody footprints in the sand. Such mysterious events recurred many more times. They say Carson continued his raids, but each new crime ended in unimaginable tragedy, as if the river itself haunted him. Locals believe the Red River swallowed his soul, and now forces him to return again and again to this cursed land, where Carson's spirit roams the hills and cliffs. With each passing year, this story grew more sinister. Numerous treasure hunters and travelers who decided to explore the area vanished without a trace. Some claimed to have seen strange glowing figures in the misty night air, while others reported hearing footsteps behind them, though no one was nearby. In one case, a group of archaeologists exploring old settlements on the banks of the Red River claimed to have seen Carson's ghost standing on a cliff, looking toward the river. None of the group ever returned, and their bodies were never found. The mystery of the Red River and its bloody legends remain unsolved to this day. Rumors of a curse, bandit spirits, and unexplained disappearances have never disappeared from the conversations of local residents, and anyone who decides to try their luck in these lands always remembers that the river has claimed more than one life and may not be willing to let them go. Regardless, the Red River remains a place full of mystery and mysticism. Around every bend, in every fog, lie stories that defy logical explanation. Outlaw William "Red" Carson has become more than just a character in history, but part of a myth that never ceases to terrify and captivate those who seek answers to the mysteries of the Wild West. Ghost trains of the Rockies. The Rocky Mountains are not only a beautiful region of the Wild West, but also a place filled with many mystical stories, one of which involves ghost trains. The story begins in the 1870s when railroads were built through the mountainous regions, connecting the East Coast with the Wild West. Railroad construction in those areas was incredibly difficult and dangerous due to the inaccessible mountain passes and harsh climate. But what happened along those tracks gave rise to one of the strangest and most mysterious tales of the Wild West. One of the most famous and tragic accidents occurred in 1885. On the most dangerous stretch of the railroad through the Rocky Mountains, a passenger train traveling from Denver to St. Louis crashed. An elderly man named James Reed and his family were passengers on the train when it collided horribly with rocks that had fallen from a mountainside and blocked the track. More than 30 people died in the disaster, and the train, destroyed in flames, became a symbol of the tragedy that shook the entire region. However, this was only the beginning of a series of strange occurrences that later became known as ghost train stories. Legends of them began to spread among local residents, and soon these stories became part of urban mythology. It is said that soon after the disaster, strange lights began appearing at the crash site, moving along the railroad tracks, as if someone or something were still traveling there. Some eyewitnesses reported seeing a non-existent train with lights passing through the fog on dark nights, its bell audible for a long time. But when people tried to get closer, the train disappeared, leaving no trace or sound. One of the most striking cases, which became widely known, was the story of a farmer named Henry Dale. One night he was on his ranch, located near a railroad. Henry said he saw from his window a strange train moving along the tracks in the distance. The train was unusually bright, and the lights appeared as menacing flames, appearing and disappearing like the flickering flames of a campfire. Henry tried to approach the railroad, but as soon as he got close, the train disappeared into the thick fog. His subsequent attempts to investigate the area yielded no results, no trace except for a strange feeling of unease that haunted him for many years. Locals claimed the train was the ghost of the very same train that had crashed many years earlier. Some believed it was not just the spirits of the people who died in the disaster, but also their vengeful continuation, seeking peace but unable to find it. Legends claim the train continues to travel through the Rocky Mountains, carrying the souls of the dead, and only those who dare to gaze upon this mirage can experience a feeling of incredible uneasiness. But these stories conceal more than just mystical power. Sometimes people claim to have seen not just lights, but the train itself, with its train and the seemingly living people sitting in the carriages. When people tried to study these phenomena, they saw only fading silhouettes and sparks. Some claim they tried to follow the train, but all efforts were futile. The track did not lead to the real world. For several decades, such stories continued unabated. During certain seasons, when snow and rain began to fill the valleys, there were even those who claimed to hear the actual sound of a wheel rolling along the tracks. Even though no train existed, these stories were repeatedly verified by researchers, but increasingly they only became more mystical and enigmatic. And the strangest thing is that no one can yet explain these events. Some believe the vanished train is nothing more than an illusion caused by the phenomenon of light reflections in the dark nights of the Rocky Mountains. However, most believers in the supernatural continue to claim that the red lights are a memory of a tragic disaster that left its mark on the heart of the Wild West itself. The ghosts of the Rocky Mountain train have become not only a myth, but also a part of the region's history. This myth remains alive and real for those who dared to venture into the mountains at night and truly experience all the strange, inexplicable events that occurred on the railroad tracks. It's no coincidence that to this day, the train that travels through the Rocky Mountains remains a symbol of tragedy, mysticism, and timeless stories that live on in legend. The mystery of the missing miners. The Rocky Mountains of the Wild West not only attracted adventurers, but also became a place harboring numerous mysteries. One of the most enigmatic stories, haunting local residents and explorers, was that of missing miners who were never found despite years of searching. It all began in the 1870s when vast gold and silver deposits were discovered in the Colorado mountains. Miners and fortune seekers flocked to these places, hoping for wealth and prosperity. A group of 8 miners ventured into a remote area known for its rich gold deposits. Despite the dangers, the miners decided to avoid the main routes and choose a more secluded route to avoid competition and other groups attempting to reach the same sites. The miners were experienced, but their journey was so dangerous that they left no trace for anyone who might follow. They took minimal supplies and hoped to quickly strike gold and return before winter. However, their disappearance became one of the most terrifying mysteries of the Wild West. Soon after their disappearance, disturbing rumors began to circulate. Locals claimed that someone had last seen them as the group crossed a stream and ventured into the wooded hills where there were no roads or landmarks, but no one saw them again. They didn't return for several weeks either. When the search began, everyone was at a loss. The miners had left no trace. Only a few tools were found in a remote camp, and that was it. There were no bodies, signs of a struggle, or other clues that could explain their disappearance. People who went searching also began telling strange stories. They say one of the searchers, walking through the forest at night, heard strange sounds, like footsteps, and footprints leading deep into the forest. But when he tried to follow them, the tracks disappeared, as if the earth had swallowed them. Others claimed to have seen mysterious lights wandering in the darkness, as if the spirits of the miners were trying to guide them to their death. After several months of fruitless searching, rumors about the miners began to spread. Locals claimed they were victims of an ancient curse placed on the land where they were attempting to work. Some claimed that this place held not only riches, but also the spirits of ancient tribes who inhabited these mountains many centuries ago. According to legend, anyone who dared to disturb the peace of these lands would be haunted by those who once lived here and would not return alive. Over the years, the search died down, and the story of the missing miners gradually became part of local mythology. However, the oldest and wisest of the locals continued to believe that in these mountains, among the dark forests and cliffs, traces of the group that never returned could still be found. Some even claim that strange phenomena, such as the disappearance of people and objects, continue to occur, especially in areas where the miners once worked. Modern explorers, attempting to unravel this mystery, have also encountered unexplained occurrences. One of the most recent expeditions to the area claimed to have encountered a phenomenon along the way that could not be explained scientifically. Their satellites began to lose orientation, and the maps they were using stopped showing their correct locations. Navigation technologies failed, and the old, abandoned mines they found seemed so ancient and dilapidated that the explorers felt as if they had discovered not something forgotten, but something hidden and lurking. Some believe the place where the miners disappeared still holds its secrets, and its spirits continue to lure brave souls who set out to search. Legends of curses and lost treasures intertwine with reality, making this place not only dangerous, but also mysterious. Research, searches, and new theories all add to the mystical quality of the story. The mystery of the missing miners remains unsolved, and this place still attracts those seeking answers. Many believe it is one of the few places in the Wild West that defies human explanation and continues to hold many secrets that will never be revealed. The mystery of the dead villages. The Wild West was not only a site of turbulent battles and gold prospecting, but also the epicenter of numerous mysterious disappearances of entire settlements. One of the strangest and most disturbing phenomena were the so-called dead villages, places where life had once teemed, but for some reason all the inhabitants vanished without a trace. One such village was founded in the mid-19th century, but vanished within a few decades, leaving behind only empty houses, old tools, and strange, inexplicable events. It all began in the 1860s when several small settlements focused on gold mining and cattle ranching were founded in northern Texas. One of them was located near a river in the heart of the vast prairie. The location was ideal for establishing a village. The river provided water sources, and there were ample cattle pastures nearby. The village grew and developed, and life there was calm and orderly, despite the hardships of frontier life. But one day, in 1870, this village disappeared. Without any sign of violence, without warning or trace of any trouble, all the inhabitants simply abandoned their homes. Soon after their disappearance, neighboring villagers noticed that the houses in this settlement stood abandoned. Elderly people from nearby settlements said they had heard nothing strange until they discovered the houses empty. At first glance, the village looked like an ordinary settlement, with houses, vegetable gardens, and cattle stalls, but not a single living person was in sight. When several researchers and local residents visited the village, they discovered strange tracks, as if life there had suddenly stopped. Broken ropes, unfinished work, tools forgotten in the gardens, all suggested that no one had intended to leave. Even the food left in the houses showed no signs of haste. But the strangest thing happened when they discovered the first tracks in the forest leading to the empty village. These tracks, witnesses claimed, didn't match any known group of animals. The tracks left strange marks, as if someone had been walking on the land for a very long time, but no one could explain what it was. By then, rumors of dead villages had spread, and adventurers began arriving in the area, but no one could explain the disappearances. Several theories existed, ranging from simple migrations to more mystical versions. One such theory posited that the village was cursed by an ancient Native American tribe that had lived in the area before the arrival of Europeans. Local stories claimed that these Native Americans had placed a curse on the land, and that anyone who decided to settle there would disappear. Others claimed the village was simply abandoned after its residents were struck by an unknown disease that claimed many lives in a short time. However, no documentation was found to support this claim. As recently as the 20th century, several researchers, using modern technology, were able to locate burials in the area, but many remained empty, and those that were present were so ancient that no one could accurately determine their date. Rumors circulate among locals that at night, especially during special natural phenomena such as eclipses or severe thunderstorms, whispering voices can be heard at the site of the vanished village. At night, anyone who dares to approach this place reports strange visions and the feeling of being watched. Repeatedly, those who have tried to spend the night in the abandoned houses have disappeared or returned terrified, claiming to be haunted by apparitions in these places, old, forgotten faces from the past. Every year, new adventurers and historians appear in this area, trying to unravel the mystery of the dead villages. Some even believe the village was part of a larger region, affected by an incomprehensible phenomenon, possibly related to enormous underground reservoirs that could have affected people's lives. Just like other vanished settlements, this village remains one of the most enigmatic, still unexplained mysteries. Why did it disappear? Were the inhabitants relocated by order of the authorities or hidden from view after a tragic event? Or perhaps there's something more mystical at work, unknown forces that haunt those who chose to settle in these places. This place remains a source of interest and research, but no theory has illuminated its darkness. The mystery of the dead villages continues to terrify those who dare to unravel the enigma, remaining unanswered, like so many other events in the Wild West. Ghosts of the Montana Mines. Montana is a state known for its vast expanses, picturesque mountain landscapes, and turbulent past filled with stories of gold and precious stones. But Montana has also become a place where not only millions of dollars have been buried deep in the earth, but also many dark secrets associated with the mines that once yielded these precious gems. These mines have literally become graves for many miners who didn't live to see their day of riches, and their spirits are said to haunt these places, continuing to roam the mountain slopes and the miners' catacombs. The most famous mine, symbolized by mystical occurrences, was the Golden Vine Mine in the Lewis Clark Mountains, which attracted miners from across the West in the late 19th century. Situated deep in the forest, near a river, this mine was literally brimming with legends. Vast gold reserves were mined here, and many miners who succeeded in extracting the precious ingots eventually disappeared, as if the earth itself had swallowed them up forever. One of the most terrifying stories concerns the disappearance of a miner named Thomas Barkley, who in 1879 was one of the most experienced and respected workers at the Golden Vine Mine. He was the first to discover rich gold deposits, and despite being an intelligent and calculating man, he soon vanished without a trace. His fellow workers searched for him for several days, but all their efforts yielded no results. His disappearance became a true mystery. And what's even stranger is that his last diary entry before his disappearance contained strange words about strange noises in the mines he heard and about leaving a world full of cruel darkness. Soon after this incident, even stranger events began to occur at the mine. Miners working in the mines began claiming to hear strange sounds emanating from the dark tunnels, sounds that could not be caused by any known source. Some claimed to see glowing silhouettes in the depths of the mines, while others heard footsteps, though no one was around. All these events gave rise to rumors that the mine was cursed and that the souls of the dead miners could not find peace. As unusual occurrences became more frequent, work at the Golden Vine Mine became dangerous. Those attempting to work in the deep shafts found themselves trapped, their lives suddenly cut short under the strangest circumstances. The bodies of miners were often found, but the cause of their deaths remained unexplained. Some claimed they died of suffocation, others that they were killed by mysterious forces that inhabited the mines. But the same thing was written on each of the deceased's faces, an expression of fear, as if confronted with something they could not understand. Locals and other miners said the spirits of the dead haunted these mines. Some believed these spirits were trying to warn new miners of the terrible dangers that awaited them if they continued to work there. It's said that when standing at the entrance to the mine, you can sometimes feel a chill emanating from within, and in the dark corners of the tunnels, you can see glowing spots that disappear as you approach. But the most mystical aspect of this mine is the discovery of so-called unexplained ore. In the early 20th century, a group of scientists traveled to the Golden Vine mine to study the minerals found by miners. They discovered unusual, unimaginable sparks and stains on gold bars, which they believed had nothing to do with normal geology. Experts were unable to explain why the gold in these mines sparkled and shimmered so unusually. One scientist suggested that the mine was a place where inexplicable forces had long existed, as if the land in these areas were imbued with mystical energy. Finally, in 1927, after years of searching and investigation, the mine was abandoned. All work ceased and the shafts were flooded. But even after that, the story of the Golden Vine persisted. Locals claim that sometimes, when the moon shines brightly on the mountains, a glowing train can be seen, like something living that was once part of this land. According to legend, this train is nothing more than the spirits of the miners who will forever remain in these mountains among the gold and dark tunnels. The mystery of Montana's mines remains one of the most mystical and unsolved in the Wild West. It's a place where death and life intertwine, and the soul of a miner who failed to leave the earth remains forever a part of the mountains where it once sought its fortune. Revenge from the depths of Wyoming. Wyoming, one of the most remote and mysterious states of the Wild West, is famous for its vast prairies, deep canyons, and mountain ranges that conceal many secrets. One of the darkest stories of this region is a legend of vengeance that emanates from the darkest corners of the earth. It is said that the land of Wyoming once became a place where the spirits of the long dead began to return to avenge the deaths of their descendants. The story begins in the 1880s, when active coal and mineral mining began in Wyoming. The construction of the mines attracted numerous workers, including those who were not only skilled in their craft, but also fugitives from the law. One such mine, located in the heart of the state, soon became famous for its incredible discoveries and vast coal reserves, but also for the tragic events that followed. Locals claim that the site of the mine, in a Wyoming canyon, was once home to a small Native American village, completely destroyed during military operations by the U.S. Army. The tribe was a well-known ally of many other peoples living in the Rocky Mountains and repeatedly launched attacks on white settlements. After the Army massacred the entire village, its lands were seized and the mines were developed. From that moment, rumor has it, the revenge began. Miners working in these lands began to encounter unexplained occurrences. At first, these were simply rumors, disappearing tools, strange footprints in the snow, as if someone had been walking in their absence. However, these occurrences soon became more terrifying. One worker, John Harris, claimed to have seen strange lights in the forest near the mine. On one such occasion, when he went to check on what was happening, he discovered an old Native American woman in the forest, her gaze leading him directly to the mine. He never returned, and his body was found with brutal wounds consistent with those inflicted by sharp rocks or knives. With each passing day, the disappearances became more frequent. Some miners vanished without a trace, leaving behind only their tools. Those who remained told stories of hearing strange sounds and footsteps at night in the foggy haze. But no one dared go outside to check who it might be. At one point, when the miners began returning to the village to ask for help, they told terrifying stories of being pursued by dark shadows, as if something invisible but tangible was following them. One of the most horrific incidents was the mass disappearance of a group of miners who had gone to work in the mine one autumn day. They never returned that day. A rescue team sent to search for them found only empty tents, footprints in the snow, and a few completely inexplicable items, their guns, tools, and personal belongings. However, according to locals, these were no ordinary footprints. Many claimed they were left behind, as if the men themselves had no intention of leaving. The strangest thing was that when the rescuers tried to retrieve their belongings, they sensed a strange presence, something watching them from the dark corners of the canyon. But when they tried to approach, this something always disappeared. The mystery of Wyoming's missing miners remains unsolved to this day. Local legends claim it was the revenge of Native Americans, whose souls could find no peace until they avenged their lost ancestors. Some elders claimed that an ancient curse haunted these lands, placed there by a tribe that could not forgive invaders and those who desecrated sacred lands. According to them, the spirits of the dead began returning, attempting to stop those who continued to mine the land. The mystery of the missing miners and the curse that haunted them remains unsolved in Wyoming, like many other stories that encompass this mystical and harsh region. Today, the mine is long abandoned, and the lands around it are considered cursed. Despite all the research, locals avoid the area. Those who venture on tours report feeling not only danger in the empty mines, but also the presence of something else, something ancient and incomprehensible. Those who dare to spend the night here often see strange visions or hear footsteps, but can never explain who or what is behind these events. Some researchers argue that the mystery of Wyoming's missing miners will never be solved, and that perhaps the story serves as a reminder of the dangers of disturbing the peace and power hidden in these ancient lands. The mystery of the lost settlement of Lake City. Somewhere in the Utah mountains lies a story that still lingers in rumors, yet remains a mystery to all who have tried to unravel it. It's the story of the lost settlement of Lake City, founded in the 1850s but vanished from the face of the earth at some point, leaving behind only empty houses and dusty roads leading to nowhere. Lake City began as a thriving settlement on the shores of one of the lakes, rich in resources and natural wealth that attracted settlers, fortune seekers, and traders. The people who lived here farmed, fished, and mined copper, and everything seemed normal for a small town in the Wild West. But in 1860, just a few years after its founding, something incredible happened. The entire village vanished. Local residents who farmed near Lake City began noticing strange occurrences long before the town disappeared. At first, there were minor interruptions in food supplies. Some farmers reported strange sounds coming from the village, the sound of hammering, whispers, or loud conversations. But no one could pinpoint what they were. People living in Lake City were said to have begun behaving strangely, withdrawn, and often avoiding the streets. Then, several months later, one morning, the entire village vanished. All the houses were empty, but no signs of struggle or violence were found. The settlement simply ceased to exist, as if its inhabitants had vanished overnight. Moreover, the traces of their disappearance seemed so strange that nothing was left at the site to explain the phenomenon. Livestock were found on the outskirts of the village, but without tracks, as if the animals had simply abandoned their owners and wandered toward the lake. Most surprisingly, many people point to the constant fog that always enveloped the village at night. Locals claimed that as they approached the settlement, they felt an inexplicable chill and a sense of uneasiness. What's strange is that this was always the case, from the very first day the settlement was founded until its disappearance. The legend of the lost settlement of Lake City spread, and many adventurers and archaeologists began to flock to the area in search of uncovering the mystery. However, everyone who attempted to explore these places encountered the same strange sensations as before, as if the land refused to allow anyone to delve into its secrets. Many who set out to search never returned, leaving behind only shadows and tales of what they had seen. One of the most famous cases involves an expedition to the Lake City area in the 1930s. After months of preparation and planning, the group of researchers set out to follow the tracks left by the vanished inhabitants. They reported that, upon approaching the site of the former settlement, they felt a sharp change in temperature and heard a strange humming sound, which they said emanated from the ground itself. They also claimed to have seen strange lights while on the lakeshore at night, which could not be explained by any natural phenomenon. Upon returning home, after a long silence, the expedition members reported that some invisible but tangible factor had influenced them, forcing them to return without completing their mission. Some of them stated that after returning home, they could no longer explain what had happened. Far from Lake City, they felt that something from their experience remained with them, something inexplicable and dark. No one has ever been able to explain what happened to Lake City, and questions about why it disappeared have become part of mythology and urban legend. Some spoke of an ancient curse placed upon the land. Others claimed the city was the site of experiments with natural forces or even secret government projects. But the fact remains, the settlement was destroyed, and its inhabitants, it seems, simply vanished. For a long time, researchers and tourists tried to unravel this mystery. However, despite numerous expeditions, no one was able to find the exact spot where the city once stood. Legends of Lake City continued to live on, attracting ever more seekers, but none of the expeditions were successful. Today, the place is abandoned, and Lake City remains only in stories and myths. However, anyone who dares to search for it in the mountain mists encounters the same strange sensations as those who tried to solve its mystery. The mystery of Lake City, like many other mysteries of the Wild West, remains unsolved, leaving behind only questions and the ghosts of vanished people who continue to search for answers in the darkest corners of history. The mystery of Garrick's lost expedition. In the 1890s, as westward expansion gained momentum, groups of explorers and adventurers often ventured into uncharted lands to discover new horizons or find hidden treasures. One of the most mysterious events of that time was the disappearance of the Garrick expedition, a group of explorers who had set out into the remote areas of Wyoming in search of gold deposits and ancient Native American artifacts. What happened to the expedition remains unknown to this day. The expedition was organized in 1892 when exploration was actively underway in the area. Garrick, the group's leader, was an experienced explorer who had spent several years working in the Wild West and knew the local conditions. His plan was to traverse uncharted areas in the mountain ranges and find rumored hidden gold deposits. The group consisted of 8 people: geographers, engineers, hunters, and guides. All were experienced men, ready for any challenge. When the group set out, their route was carefully planned, and they prepared for difficult conditions in advance. For the first few weeks, everything went according to plan. The expedition moved through mountain valleys, crossed rivers, and penetrated deep into protected areas. But soon, something went wrong. 2 months into their journey, Garrick and his group disappeared. The last note they left behind was written on old parchment and found at an abandoned camp, now completely deserted. The note claimed the group had discovered something strange: ancient ruins hidden in the woods and unusual tracks leading into unknown depths. But Garrick didn't have time to reveal what exactly they had found. After that, the note ended and the group vanished. The initial search for the expedition yielded no results. Rescuers searched for traces, but all efforts proved futile. Rumors that the group had fallen into the hands of local Indians quickly spread. However, in this region, protected by various tribes, no attacks on white settlers had been recorded. The silence surrounding the expedition's disappearance became increasingly strange. Years later, in 1901, a group of explorers set out again, but they encountered even greater difficulties. Rumor has it that one of the exploration teams, attempting to retrace Garrick's steps, stumbled upon an unusual place: an empty valley hidden among the high mountains. This was a place where, according to legend, ancient ruins once stood, and according to local Native American stories, it had always been hidden from view. Even stranger, the group discovered traces of strange objects, similar to Native American amulets, that had not been found elsewhere. The area, according to the explorers, was unusually quiet, and the air seemed heavy and thick with something strange. Some old maps indicated the existence of a hidden valley in these areas, possibly containing artifacts belonging to long-vanished civilizations. This place was considered sacred by local tribes, and mystical properties were attributed to it. Locals often spoke of the land in these areas as unclean, and that those who dared to explore it would never return. Legends claimed that anyone who disturbed the peace of these lands would be haunted by the spirits of ancient warriors and shamans whose souls had not found peace. Garrick's expedition, some believe, fell victim to these supernatural forces. But what really happened to them? Answers remain elusive. After the group disappeared, other explorers continued to come to these lands, but each time their search ended in failure. Some claimed to have seen the spirits of Garrick and his companions in night visions, while others claimed to have heard their voices in the misty valleys. The last person to truly attempt to unravel the mystery of the expedition's disappearance was an archaeologist named James Selder. In 1930, he decided to undertake a final, decisive investigation. However, his search also ended tragically. According to his companions, before he vanished, James claimed to have found ancient stone slabs carved with symbols unlike any known Native American script. But, like Garrick, Selder vanished, leaving behind only strange footprints in the sand and a few notes filled with incomprehensible symbols. The mystery surrounding Garrick's expedition remains unsolved. With each passing year, the search grows more mysterious. Locals claim that the lands of Wyoming conceal many secrets, and that no expedition ever leaves these lands entirely. Perhaps the answer to this mystery lies in the fact that these lands are guarded not only by ancestral spirits, but also by forces that prevent people from discovering the hidden treasures and knowledge concealed within the mountains. The mystery of Garrick's vanished expedition continues to captivate explorers and adventurers, seeking to unravel it and wrest from these lands the answers to questions that will remain forever unanswered. The mysterious lights of Saturn Mountain. In eastern California, amidst boundless expanses, lies the Saturn Mountain Range. This place has always attracted the attention of not only explorers and adventurers, but also those seeking the supernatural. Locals often spoke of strange lights occasionally seen on the mountaintops, and these lights became part of many mystical stories that spread throughout the Wild West. The story began in 1875, when a small group of miners exploring the mountains in search of gold noticed bright lights in the sky, moving in the direction they intended to dig. At first, the miners thought they were simply reflections from fires, but as the lights grew brighter and faster, they began to feel as if they were witnessing something supernatural. As soon as one of the miners tried to approach closer, the lights disappeared and the atmosphere around them became so unsettling that the group hastily abandoned the area. Rumors of the mysterious lights soon spread throughout the area, and locals began to believe they were a sign. Some claimed the lights were connected to the spirits of ancient Native Americans who once lived in the area. According to local legends, they were warriors who left treasures behind, but they also cursed the land they inhabited before departing this world. A year later, a new group of miners arrived at the site, determined to unravel the mystery everyone was talking about. However, upon arriving in the mountains, they immediately noticed that the space around them was becoming strangely dense, and the air seemed to be growing heavier. The further they went into the mountains, the more they felt the presence of something unusual. Some of the miners began complaining of headaches, and one even claimed to be haunted by strange visions. One night, after the group had stopped for the night, the lights appeared again. They were brighter than before and seemed to dance across the sky, changing shape as if they were chasing them. Some of the miners claimed the lights began moving across the mountain slopes, stopping at certain points, as if searching for something. At one point, one of the miners ventured closer and climbed to the summit, where the lights seemed especially bright. He returned only hours later, but his face was contorted with fear, and he couldn't really explain what had happened. "I saw them. They were looking at me," were the only words he could utter. He was later found dead, and no one ever knew the cause of his death. The next day, the group decided to leave the mountains, but soon noticed that their maps and compasses were leading to completely unexpected places. Some of the miners began complaining of being lost, and eventually it became clear that they couldn't find their camp, even though they were supposed to be back by then. This led to new theories that the mountain possessed mystical properties that led astray all who dared to enter it. It was said that the mountains swallowed people and led them into traps from which there was no escape. The mystery of the Saturn Mountain Lights has attracted the attention of not only miners, but also scientists and paranormal experts. Several expeditions have been conducted to the area over the decades, but none have yielded conclusive results. Some have attempted to explain the lights as a natural phenomenon, for example, as reflections from rocks, minerals, or even the bioluminescence of certain plants. However, all attempts to find a rational explanation have always come up against one thing. The lights seen by people defied any scientific explanation. Moreover, the locals, especially the Native Americans, continued to believe that these lights were more than just a natural phenomenon. They said the lights represented spirits returning to guard the forgotten treasures of their ancestors, hidden within the mountain. One of the most popular myths among the indigenous peoples was the prophecy that these lights heralded the return of the ancient gods who once ruled these lands. At some point, the idea arose that the Saturn Mountain Lights were not just a mystical phenomenon, but also a warning. When one of the researchers, using cutting-edge equipment to film and study the nature of these lights, lost contact with his team. His equipment was soon found, but he himself was gone. At this point, questions about the reality of these lights returned to the forefront, and many began to believe that Saturn Mountain held something hidden, something people shouldn't know. Today, Saturn Mountain and its mysterious lights remain one of the most talked about and researched places in the Wild West. Tourists and explorers continue to flock to this place, trying to unravel the mysteries of the mountains and understand what truly goes on there. Those who dare to spend the night in this area often tell stories of strange visions, unexplained sounds, and lights emerging from the dark forest, carrying away anyone who dares to follow them. The mystery of Saturn Mountain remains one of the most unsolved and mystical stories of the Wild West, attracting the attention of those seeking answers to questions that perhaps should not be answered. The mystery of the abandoned prison on the Charlie River. Far to the west, in the heart of Texas, on the banks of the Charlie River, lies an abandoned prison that was once home to the Wild West's most dangerous outlaws. Known as Charlie Hill, the prison has been the subject of many tales and mystical stories. Despite its abandonment, the place leaves no traveler indifferent. Dark rumors of what happened within these walls still haunt the minds of locals and adventurers. The prison's history began in the 1860s, when the Texas state government decided to build a facility for especially dangerous criminals who were beyond the reach of traditional justice. The prison was located far from major cities, in an area surrounded by rugged mountains and nearly impassable swamps. This was intended to ensure that the prisoners could not escape. Many of the prisoners sent here were such notorious bandits and criminals that their names became legends of the Wild West. However, something went wrong when the prison began filling with ever larger inmates. Finally, on one of the most terrifying days, when yet another group of criminals arrived, the unimaginable happened. They say that on the night of October 23rd, 1880, all the prisoners, including the guards, disappeared. The prison, left without a single living person, looked as if everyone had simply vanished into thin air. Only their personal belongings remained in their cells, and on the tables left in the guard cells were glasses of half-drunk coffee, documents, and writing utensils. No signs of a struggle or violence were found in the prison itself, and it seemed as if everything had literally vanished overnight. Following this incident, a search began. Expeditions were immediately organized to investigate the disappearance. They searched for traces in the forests, swamps, and mountains surrounding the prison, but all efforts proved futile. All attempts to locate any of the missing prisoners, including the guards, were fruitless. No traces were found, and most terrifyingly, not a single body was recovered. The prison remained empty and silent, its very walls seemingly absorbed by the recent events. Legends of the abandoned prison began to spread. Locals, hearing of these happenings, claimed the place was cursed. Some said footsteps and the sound of chains could still be heard in the prison, even though no one was around. Others claimed that during the full moon, glowing figures could be seen on the Charlie River, quickly disappearing as soon as one approached them. People claimed these were the souls of those who had vanished in the night, and that they could find no peace. The prison was abandoned, but its walls soon began to attract the attention of not only local residents, but also archaeologists and mystical enthusiasts who sought to unravel its secrets. One such explorer was Professor James O'Connor, who organized an expedition to the site in the 1930s, hoping to unravel what really happened on the night of the disappearance. According to O'Connor and his team, when they entered the prison, they immediately felt a strange sensation, as if something invisible was watching them. The cells where prisoners had once been held appeared eerily empty, but a strange echo, as if someone were still within those walls, lingered. Desperate, the researchers began questioning longtime residents and gathering information to try to find any clues. Rumors of the prison's curse and the disappearance of its inhabitants continued to grow. Soon after returning to the city, Professor O'Connor himself claimed to have seen something strange in one of the corridors, where the prison connected to the underground tunnels. He claimed to have seen a figure standing in a dark corner, but as soon as he approached, the figure disappeared. However, what was even more mysterious was that a detailed examination of the site revealed several ancient symbols carved directly into the walls, symbols that, according to local Native Americans, symbolized the entrance to the world of the dead. Local legends claim these symbols were left behind by the people who inhabited these lands before the arrival of Europeans, and that when the prisoners and guards disappeared, these symbols awakened and evil spirits came to claim their souls. Those who dared to enter the prison after this event reported seeing paintings on the walls, seemingly drawn in blood, and shadows moving in the empty cells as if someone was guarding them. To this day, the prison remains a closed and abandoned place where no one dares to linger for long. Locals avoid the area, and those who dare visit cannot even pass through the main gates without feeling the gaze of those who once lived and worked here. The mystery of the vanished expedition and prison on the Charlie River remains unsolved to this day. And although many have attempted to understand what happened on those dark nights and unravel the mystery of these events, this story remains one of the most terrifying and mystical episodes of the Wild West, where even walls can hide more than meets the eye. The mystery of the Guardian Stones in the Nevada desert. Deep in the Nevada desert, where the heat reaches its peak and the earth literally boils beneath your feet, there exists a mysterious place that attracts the attention of archaeologists, scientists, and adventurers. This place is known as the Guardian Stones, and the legends associated with it suggest that these stones are not just a natural phenomenon, but hidden evidence of ancient civilizations and their mysterious rituals. It all began in the 1890s when a group of researchers exploring the Nevada desert came across strange stones arranged in a circle. The stones varied in size, some reaching several meters in height. From a distance, they looked like ordinary natural formations. But as the researchers approached closer, they noticed that the stones were strangely carved, their surfaces adorned with ancient symbols that couldn't be explained by modern knowledge. At first, the group assumed they were simply Native American artifacts, but as the research continued, it became clear that these stones were more than just artifacts from ancient tribes. They were clearly connected to something more mystical and enigmatic. Each stone was carved with meticulous attention to detail, and the designs and symbols on their surfaces clearly indicated something more than mere decorative ornamentation. Some symbols resembled star maps, while others resembled manuscripts that could have been part of an ancient language, long forgotten and incomprehensible to modern scholars. What's even stranger is that the stones seem to guard the entrance to an unknown location, which some believe may be an ancient underground temple or an abandoned city. An unnatural silence permeated the surrounding area. Researchers claimed to feel an unimaginable pressure as they passed between the stones, and one of the group members even reported losing consciousness for a while. The mystery of these stones wasn't limited to their strange placement and incomprehensible symbols. According to several local residents, inexplicable events occurred around the stones. Sometimes, at night, strange light phenomena were observed, resembling lights that seemed to move in a circle, as if someone or something were guarding the stones. The next morning, researchers returning to the site were unable to explain what they were. The stones remained as silent and mysterious as ever. Scientists soon learned of the guardian stones. Several expeditions were sent to the Nevada desert to study them, but each encountered setbacks. Sometimes equipment broke for no apparent reason, maps were lost, and satellite coordinates didn't match reality. In some cases, expedition members reported visions or the sensation of an invisible presence watching them. One of the strangest incidents was the disappearance of one of the researchers who, according to his companions, went to the stones alone but never returned. Locals familiar with these places said the guardian stones were more than just geological formations. They believed they were a kind of forbidden entrance to a world hidden from prying eyes. Native American legends say these stones were once used as points of power, and that only the initiated could pass through them to reach other worlds or communicate with the spirits of their ancestors. It was said that the stones could come to life on certain nights and begin to emit light, opening the way for those who dared to pass between them. Despite numerous studies, the guardian stones in the Nevada desert remain unexplored and mysterious. No one knows for sure who left them or for what purpose. Many scientists speculate that they may have been the work of an ancient cult, or that the site is connected to a lost civilization unknown. One thing is certain: the Nevada desert continues to hold its secrets, and anyone who attempts to delve into this mystery faces even more questions than answers. The guardian stones, standing silently amid the sands and hot winds, remain a symbol of the Wild West, a place where invisible forces lurk at every turn, ready to challenge those who dare to seek answers. The mystery of the disappeared caravan route. In the vast deserts of the Wild West, where sand conceals bygone eras and the scorching sun burns away the last traces of time, there exists a mystery that still defies explanation. It is the story of a caravan trail that disappeared from maps in the late 19th century, leaving behind only myths and legends. Once used by travelers, gold prospectors, and traders, the trail is now completely lost. In the 1870s, when gold was the primary motivator for people arriving in the Wild West, a route known as the Caravan Trail was developed. It connected several major trading cities, such as Denver and Las Vegas, and passed through some of the most rugged terrain, such as the Mojave Desert and the Sierra Nevada mountains. The Caravan Trail was an important transportation route, carrying not only goods but also travelers in search of fortune. However, one day in 1884, a caravan consisting of dozens of wagons disappeared along this route, and no one has been able to find a single trace of them since. This disappearance has become a mystery for researchers, and to this day, there is no evidence as to what actually happened to this caravan. It is said that this disappearance was due to the caravan's entry into an unbearably hot and arid region, where even the deepest springs lacked water. Soon after the caravan's disappearance, rumors began to circulate that people traveling along this trail had encountered some kind of supernatural phenomenon. Some claimed that the group had fallen victim to a sandstorm that not only concealed their tracks, but also carried their souls into the void. Others claimed that the caravan had encountered something supernatural, spirits or beings that guarded this route and prevented the living from passing on. Locals, who adhere to ancient traditions and beliefs, tell stories of how Native Americans avoided this route, considering it cursed. They believed the caravan trail was a place where earth and sky were intertwined in dark forces that could devour those who dared to walk it. One of the most popular myths was that the caravan route was connected to an ancient Native American ritual, and that anyone who trespassed on this territory would be punished. It was believed that the forces of nature hidden in these sands could come to life and punish people for their greed and attempts to destroy sacred land. Be that as it may, with the caravan's disappearance, other strange occurrences began to surface. Several explorers attempting to find traces of the missing also vanished under mysterious circumstances. Their tracks were discovered along the same route, but despite the best efforts of rescue teams, no one could explain how they perished. In some cases, only the tracks of their horses were found, leading into empty, uninhabited desert. The uncertainty surrounding the disappearance only heightened the mystical aspects. Several eyewitnesses testified that strange glowing lights appeared along the caravan trail, as if someone or something was trying to warn people not to proceed. They reported that these lights grew brighter, and even those who tried to ignore them felt drawn toward them. But despite all the strange phenomena, no one could find an explanation for this mysterious disappearance. One of the most recent cases occurred in the 1920s, when a group of archaeology students decided to unravel the mystery of the caravan trail and conduct their own research in the desert. They claimed to have found traces of ancient Native American settlements, but strangely, all the equipment they were using disappeared overnight, and all the traces they had found simply vanished. They reported this to local authorities, but upon returning to the empty desert, no one else saw a single trace. Recently, new excavations were conducted in the Mojave Desert, during which archaeologists discovered remains believed to belong to that same vanished caravan. These remains were discovered in unexplored areas, not marked on maps. Upon closer inspection, archaeologists noticed that the finds were surrounded by strange symbols carved into the stones, and the site itself resembled the site of some ancient ritual. What happened to this caravan? Was it the result of natural disasters or the hidden, mystical influence of ancient forces? The story of the caravan trail remains one of the most mystical and terrifying in the Wild West, and despite the best efforts of researchers, it remains unanswered. This mystery continues to beckon those who seek answers in the darkest corners of history, in places where earthly laws don't always operate as we know them. The mystery of the lost town of Country Creek. The town of Country Creek was once a thriving settlement in the Wild West, hidden among mountain ranges and forested valleys. In the 1870s, when new gold fields were discovered in the West, the town quickly became a center of trade and gem mining. Country Creek was wealthy, and its residents knew no want. But one day, in 1882, the town vanished as suddenly as it had been founded. By then, its population numbered only a few hundred, and all of them, along with all their property, vanished without a trace. When the last caravans bound for Country Creek arrived in town, in search of goods and information, they found not a single person. Every house, shop, and tavern was abandoned. The only things left were a multitude of broken machinery, collapsed wooden structures, and forgotten items left on tables, as if someone had intended to return but never did. Like many other mysterious disappearances, the story of the missing town quickly spread throughout the area. Some claimed it was abandoned due to a disease outbreak, while others believed its inhabitants were victims of local Indians seeking revenge for the seizure of their lands. But the most terrifying rumors claimed the town was cursed, as if the earth itself had swallowed up all traces of it, leaving behind a void. The mystery of the vanished city remained unsolved until several decades later, when a search was launched. In 1910, a group of researchers and archaeologists began excavations at the former site of Country Creek, hoping to find even the slightest trace that might explain what had happened. But the results were even stranger. When archaeologists reached the site, they discovered an old stone chapel in the center of the city, containing strange symbols. These symbols, carved into the walls, had no parallel in known archaeological cultures. Some stones depicted geometric patterns reminiscent of star maps, while others bore signs resembling ancient runes. In the center of the chapel, they discovered a stone slab covered in incomprehensible writing. It was embedded in the ground and resembled an unusual chapel or tomb. The surrounding walls, like the chapel itself, appeared much older than they should have been if the city had been built in the 1870s. As excavations progressed, researchers began to uncover traces indicating that the city had not simply been abandoned, but had seemingly vanished overnight. Traces were found that led deep into the earth, into tunnels dug by an unknown force. Inside these tunnels, archaeologists found objects unrelated to the local culture. Among them were ancient stones and artifacts that did not match any of the peoples known to have inhabited these lands at the time. Some objects seemed strangely modern for the era, raising questions among scholars who were unable to provide a reasonable explanation. After this discovery became public knowledge, even more people began to flock to the area. The legend of Country Creek was revived, and rumors of a curse on the town began to circulate again. Those who got too close to the excavations were said to experience unexplained sensations, a feeling of cold, strange rustling sounds, or even hearing footsteps behind them, but no one was there. Some claimed that while spending the night in the settlement, they were awakened by invisible hands or voices whispering in an unknown language. Interest in the city grew stronger with each passing year. Some researchers attempted to study the symbols on the stones, as well as other artifacts, but all their efforts encountered insurmountable difficulties. No research could definitively explain the origin of these objects and symbols, which only added to the mystique and mystery of the entire site. Experts and archaeologists continue to grapple with the problem of deciphering the texts inscribed on the stones, and despite advances in the study of ancient scripts, they remain elusive. Some scholars claim that the town of Country Creek was connected to more ancient civilizations, perhaps even lost peoples who possessed knowledge stretching back centuries. Their influence, some theories suggest, could have led to this knowledge and power being misused and turning against those who attempted to harness it. Local residents and mystical experts are inclined to believe that this place is indeed connected to forces that have gone beyond their control. Perhaps this is precisely what caused the town's disappearance. Today, Country Creek is a forgotten area that attracts not only scientists but also adventurers eager to unravel the mystery of the vanished settlement. Many who explore these places claim to still sense the presence of those who once lived in this town and then vanished. The mystery of Country Creek remains unsolved to this day, captivating those who dare to seek answers in the heart of the Wild West. The mystery of the disappeared village of Black Valley. Black Valley, located in one of Arizona's most remote corners, is a place that has captivated explorers and adventurers alike for decades. This region, filled with arid steppes and towering mountains, seemed ideal for settlement, and in 1880, a settlement was founded that soon became known not only for its agricultural activities, but also for its mysterious fate. Shortly after its founding, Black Valley vanished, and the traces that remained pointed to something more than just a random disappearance. It all began when a small group of settlers, armed with dreams of a better life in the Wild West, founded Black Valley. Soon, thanks to its proximity to water sources and convenient location for agriculture, the settlement began to grow. People built houses, began farming, and life seemed stable. But in 1892, the unimaginable happened. The settlement disappeared. No one could explain what had happened, and all attempts by local authorities to determine the cause of this tragedy were fruitless. When the first research teams arrived at the site, they discovered the town had been abandoned that very night. The houses stood as if the people had been gone for only a few minutes, but in all the years since, no one had returned. The floors were carpeted, the tables were set, and the tools and personal belongings remained in their places, as if all the town's inhabitants had vanished in an instant. At first glance, there were no signs of violence or devastation. But as the researchers delved deeper into the area, strange things began to emerge. One of the strangest discoveries was a trail of footprints leading to an old food warehouse located on the outskirts of the village. These footprints were not human, and they did not match any animal that could have lived in these areas. The maps compiled by the researchers indicated that some natural or environmental phenomenon could have contributed to the village's disappearance during the night, but despite all the theories, none could explain the disappearance of an entire village. Furthermore, Among the most unusual and disturbing discoveries were strange symbols carved into the rocks surrounding the Black Valley area. These symbols resembled ancient runes and, as scientists later discovered, had connections to Native American cultures, leading some researchers to speculate that the disappearance of the settlement could be linked to the ancient tribes that once inhabited this land. Local residents, many of whom were descendants of Native Americans, claim that Black Valley was the site of a long-ago battle between tribes, and that the land was soaked in blood. It was said that the spirits of ancient warriors guarding this land forbade people from settling there, and those who dared to violate this prohibition disappeared, just like the inhabitants of the Black Valley. These legends were especially powerful for those who decided to spend the night there. Several people who tried to spend the night in the Black Valley reported feeling a strange presence, as if someone invisible was watching them. Some claimed to hear footsteps behind them, but upon turning around, they found no one there. This created the feeling that these lands were somehow guarded. Another mystery was a strange anomaly discovered in a nearby cave, where researchers descended, hoping to find answers. Inside the cave, they discovered traces of an ancient fireplace, laid out in an unusual manner, surrounded by stone slabs bearing the same symbols as those found in the Black Valley. These stones and symbols appeared to create an energy field that somehow affected everyone in the area. Some scientists have claimed that this could be related to some natural phenomenon, but an explanation remains elusive. Several decades after the village's disappearance, several new groups of explorers decided to return to these parts and attempt to unravel the mystery of the Black Valley. But their searches also ended in failure. Every time someone ventured deeper into these lands, things disappeared, people vanished, and those who returned often reported strange visions or sensations, as if they had experienced something beyond reality. One day, an expedition sent to conduct a more detailed investigation was found near the Black Valley, but all participants were found completely exhausted, each claiming to have seen mysterious shadows and heard ghostly sounds, and unable to explain these events. Decades later, when everyone had forgotten about the vanished settlement, Black Valley remained an unsolved mystery. These lands remained unexplored, and the story of the town and its disappearance remains one of the darkest and most disturbing in the Wild West. What happened to the inhabitants of Black Valley? Was it the result of a curse, or perhaps the influence of some supernatural force? The answers were never found, and this story continues to be part of the myths and legends that live in the shadows of the Wild West. The Curse of the Black River. The Black River, flowing through the depths of the deserts and mountains of Wyoming, has always been a source of life for locals. But despite its importance, the river is rumored to harbor something dark and dangerous, leading to disappearances and unexplained events. The Black River's history is rife with mystical tales, and many who have dared to peer into its darkness have never returned. For centuries, the river has remained a source of both blessing and curse, simultaneously bestowing life and taking souls. It all began in 1850, when a group of settlers traveling through the dangerous territory of Wyoming in search of a better life stopped at the Black River. They were the first white settlers to dare settle in this area. The river, like the land itself, was brimming with resources, fish, water, and food, but local Native Americans warned the settlers of the dangers of this place. Tribal elders said the river was cursed by ancestral spirits who sought revenge for the outsiders who had desecrated their sacred land. The settlers ignored these warnings and soon began settling the coastal area. However, after a few months, strange events began to occur. Initially, these were minor occurrences: disappearing animals, strange sounds coming from the river at night, and the disappearance of several people. But soon the disappearances became more widespread. Entire families began to vanish without a trace. Sometimes only footprints in the sand leading into the river were found, but the people themselves had vanished. One of the most famous cases was the disappearance of the Downing family, who had settled on the riverbank. The family of 4 was discovered several weeks after they were last heard from. Their house was empty, and there were no signs of a struggle or violence. But the most terrifying thing was that footprints in the sand led to the river, and the house itself, as if alive, seemed unnaturally quiet. Searchers found no bodies, though everyone was certain the family had been murdered and swept away by the river. Rumors of the Black River's curse continued to spread, and soon more and more people avoided the area. However, in the 1880s, when new gold deposits were discovered in the area, interest in the Black River was revived. Several exploration expeditions set out to the area to search for gold veins, but each encountered the same strange events. One group, led by renowned geologist James Harper, set out to explore and map the Black River region. All the explorers disappeared within a week of their arrival. Their final journal entries contained strange phrases about dark forces they sensed, as well as references to terrible creatures they saw in the night. When rescuers returned to look for the expedition, they found only empty tents, abandoned equipment, and strange torn maps. Some claimed their last tracks led toward the river, but when they tried to move on, the paths vanished into the thick fog. Normal footprints vanished, leaving only empty space behind. Locals claimed the river swept people away in its whirlpool, their souls forever trapped in its dark waters. Several more years passed before the river was finally abandoned. However, rumors of the Black River continued to haunt the minds of those interested in its dark history. It is said that the river remains a place that remains impossible to fully explore. Every expedition to its banks encountered the same mysterious occurrences. People returning from there often reported feeling a strange sense of dread, and many claimed to hear voices emanating from the river itself. They heard screams, whispers, and sometimes even saw silhouettes moving across the water. But when they tried to approach, everything vanished, as if the river had swallowed them up forever. Today, the Black River remains one of the most mysterious and dangerous parts of the Wild West. Many say it conceals more than just water. It hides stories no one should know. The curse that locals believe engulfs these lands remains unsolved, and the river grows more and more shrouded in mystery with each passing year. In the Wyoming wilderness, legends about the Black River and its ghosts can still be heard. People are afraid to speak of them out loud, but everyone knows that those who dare to peer into its darkness may never return. The mystery of Lady Lucky's lost mines. At the turn of the 19th century, one of the most famous yet most mysterious mines of the Wild West, Lady Lucky Mine, was founded in the heart of the Arizona mountains. Named after the fortunate woman who supposedly first discovered gold in the area, the mine became famous not only for its rich deposits, but also for the many mystical incidents that surrounded its history. Soon after its discovery, the mine became the center of one of the strangest stories: the disappearance of an entire working party, and the strange events that occurred within its boundaries. Lady Lucky was founded in the 1880s, when rumors of gold discoveries in the area attracted many miners and entrepreneurs. Nearby towns began to grow rapidly, and the mine itself generated enormous profits. Local workers and miners excavated constantly, hoping for gold that would change their lives. However, one day without warning, the entire crew disappeared. According to legend, for several days straight, workers heard strange noises and vibrations in the ground, as if the mine itself were alive and trying to devour them. This was at odds with their normal working life, and soon rumors began to circulate that the very land on which the mine was built was cursed. Local Native Americans, who had lived in these areas for centuries, claimed the land on which the mine stood was sacred and could harbor dark forces. But in their search for riches, the miners ignored these warnings. One day, when a large group of miners descended into one of the deepest levels of the mine, they vanished, leaving behind only empty baskets, tools, and randomly discarded items. No one knew what became of them. Rescue teams sent to investigate the disappearance never returned. Their search trail led to the mine entrance, but beyond that, there was no trace. Workers who ventured deeper into the mine encountered strange resistance. The tunnels grew increasingly narrow, the air grew heavy, and the torchlight barely illuminated the space. Soon, even as rumors of the missing miners spread throughout the area, the story began to take on a mystical tone. Some said it was the spirits of the dead miners, guarding the mine entrance and preventing anyone from entering. Others claimed the mine itself had become a living entity, having swallowed its workers and now continued to lure in more unfortunate souls. The further the search progressed, the stranger the events became. Soon people began to notice that many who decided to spend the night near the mine saw mysterious lights hovering in the air at ground level, and at dawn, they found only destroyed tents and empty camps. One explorer, who decided to spend the night near the mine, described hearing strange sounds from deep within the shaft, growing louder. He claimed that as soon as he tried to approach the entrance, his foot seemed to be held by an invisible force and he was unable to move. The sounds grew louder until they suddenly stopped. The most mysterious aspect of this case is the numerous references to the mine being built on an ancient Native American burial ground. Soon after the miners disappeared, local residents began claiming that the land was being punished for daring to dig in these areas. Legend has it that during the mine's construction, Native Americans warned the workers that if they began digging in this area, their fate would be cruel. Some elders even spoke of an ancient ritual associated with this land, claiming it was guarded by forces that defied explanation. After the miners disappeared, authorities decided to close the mine, and all work ceased. However, rumors of Lady Lucky persisted. Many people continued to flock to the area, trying to unravel the mystery of the place. However, each time, those who dared to approach the mine encountered the same strange phenomena. People claimed to hear knocking sounds in the night, as if someone was working in the mines, and in some cases, even saw figures appearing in the dark corners of the tunnels. However, no one could get close enough to discover what was happening. Today, the Lady Lucky mine remains abandoned, but its dark history continues to captivate. A place where gold was once sought has now become a symbol of how human ambition can sometimes unleash unimaginable powers. The legend of the missing miners and the curse of the Lady Lucky mine lives on, and anyone who ventures into these lands experiences the same sensations as those who tried to unravel the mystery all those years ago. The secret hidden underground and the spirits guarding this enigmatic corner of the Wild West continue to live their lives, forgotten only in the silence of the night, when no one dares to seek the answer. The legend of Raven's haunted farm, hidden in the wilderness of Utah, amidst endless steppes and hills, lies one of the most mysterious places in the Wild West, Raven's Farm. This parcel of land became famous not only for its vast acreage, but also for the strange events that have occurred there. Legend has it that the farmers who once settled on this land vanished in an instant, and their farm has since become not only abandoned, but also a place that locals avoid visiting, especially at night. It all began in 1870, when a farmer named John Raven settled on these lands with his family. John was an experienced farmer who seemed to have found the perfect spot for his farm. The land was fertile, and the area was free of other settlers, ensuring relative peace. But after a few years, when the farm was thriving and yielding a good harvest, the unimaginable happened. One summer evening, after returning home from trading, John found his house empty. Neither his wife nor children were inside. Half-eaten dishes remained on the kitchen table, and knickknacks hung on the shelves, as if the family had simply stepped out for a moment. However, no one had returned. While searching, John discovered several strange tracks leading from the farm into the woods, but they were so obscure that they offered no clue as to what had happened. As rumors of the missing family spread, locals began noticing strange phenomena at the Raven farm. On dark nights, they claimed to see strange lights hovering around the farmhouse, and some reported hearing the sound of heavy footsteps coming from the ground, as if someone was trying to get out. But no one dared approach the house. The strange phenomena continued, and even those who attempted to explore the farmhouse reported feeling an unusual cold, something unfamiliar and elusive. Several years later, in 1910, several researchers attempted to unravel the mystery of the disappearance of the Raven farmers. They discovered tracks leading into the forest and further into a deep valley, where they believed some ancient abandoned mining complex began. The tunnels underground seemed unusually constructed and were very different from the local mines. Inside some of these tunnels, they found strange, incomprehensible symbols carved into the walls and lifeless animal bones, apparently sacrificed. However, the strangest part of this story was the discovery of so-called sacrificial altars, which researchers claimed were used for rituals the locals were unaware of. These were strange stone structures, bearing numerous symbols reminiscent of the pagan rites of ancient civilizations. One scientist even theorized that Raven and his family may have been part of some ancient cult that took their lives. Upon their return, one of the research teams claimed to have felt something strange. One of the researchers said that on the night they were leaving Raven's house, he heard a scream coming from the dark woods. The scream was so real that he became frightened and ran. All the other participants, according to the researcher, experienced the same feeling of terror and anxiety, which persisted until they returned home. Since then, Raven's farm has been not only abandoned, but also shrouded in mystical legends. Local residents, generation after generation, have passed down stories of how the farm was cursed, and how those who dared to live on these lands suffered terrible consequences. Some claim that strange plants now grow on the site of Raven's farm, and the air that passes through these lands smells of death. Decades of research have yet to provide a definitive answer to the question of what happened to John Raven and his family. Some believe they fell victim to local tribes, while others are convinced they became part of some ancient cult. The legend of Raven's Farm persists, and those who dare to pass by claim to feel the ground beneath their feet grow cold, as if an unknown force is watching their every step. Today, Raven's Farm is a stopover for many explorers seeking answers, but only those who truly dare to search can truly feel the oppressive atmosphere of this place. The mystery of Raven's Farm remains one of the darkest and most enigmatic in the history of the Wild West, perhaps hiding something more than just the disappearance of people. This place, once brimming with life, now teems with emptiness, and behind every step, one senses the presence of an unseen force that will not provide answers to the questions left unanswered. The mystery of the steel track line. In the heart of Colorado, where high mountain ranges intersect, lies one of the most mystical places, associated with tragic events and unexplained occurrences. This place is known as the Steel Track Line, an ancient railroad line that once connected several mining towns. Today it is an abandoned road, but the story associated with it still inspires horror and curiosity in those who dare to seek answers. In the 1870s, the construction of the Colorado Railroad was a major project connecting gold mining and resource-producing towns with the outside world. However, the construction of this railroad was beset with numerous difficulties. Railroad workers faced unpredictable weather conditions, difficult mountain passes, and brutal attacks from Native Americans. But the most tragic event in the history of the construction was the disappearance of a group of workers laying the track for the steel track line. In 1873, during construction on one of the most dangerous sections, a group of 20 workers and engineers disappeared. The last entries in their journals described encountering an unknown danger, strange sounds in the night, footsteps coming from an empty, misty valley, and a feeling that something invisible was watching them. The workers reported this to their superiors, but to this day, no one can say for sure what happened. The next morning, they had vanished without a trace. All their belongings, tools, and the rails they had installed were still there, but the workers themselves were gone. When a search party set out to find them, they found only a few tracks leading into a remote valley, where the tracks, seemingly undisturbed, led into a dark void. One theory circulating among locals was that the group had fallen victim to local Indians. However, no evidence of an attack was found. Others believe they may have fallen into a natural trap, concealed by the land itself. But the most attention was drawn by strange witnesses who claimed to have seen a phantom train traveling along these tracks at night. According to eyewitnesses, the phantom trains made no sound, and their iron wheels never touched the ground. Only patches of light and faint reflections from lanterns passed through the fog, as if the train were moving from another world. This most often occurred on nights when the full moon was hidden behind clouds, and a thick fog enveloped the land. One of the most popular stories comes from an old trackman named Jeremy Brooks. He claimed that one night, while he was conducting an inspection on this section, he heard the echoes of a train moving along the tracks. He tried to catch up with it, but the train disappeared, and instead, he encountered strange tracks, as if someone were dragging a metal chain. In the darkness, he said, he managed to see several figures standing at the edge of the tracks, but as soon as he approached, they vanished into thin air, leaving only an icy chill. Over the years, as exploration and searches continued, people who came here seeking to discover the truth encountered the same strange phenomena. Legends of the steel track line lived on, but no one could answer the question. Did this train truly exist, or was it merely a figment of the imagination of those who once dared to venture into this ominous void? Recently, a group of researchers, using modern technology and satellite imagery, attempted to conduct a more detailed study of the area where the line once ran. They used drones, thermal imaging cameras, and even explored underground tunnels that could have concealed the track. However, despite all their equipment, they discovered only old metal traces and worn rails leading into an empty valley. Strangest of all, during the study, one of the researchers stated that while they were standing at the old railroad crossing, his camera captured several images of a strange, ghost-like silhouette. A day later, the researcher disappeared, and his camera was found containing unusual images that couldn't be explained by any known technology. Some of the pictures showed an old train, while others showed images of unrecognizable people. Some claimed these photos were the result of a camera malfunction, but those who examined them couldn't find a logical explanation. The camera was damaged and the images were cropped as if someone was trying to hide something important. To this day, the steel track line remains one of the most enigmatic and mystical parts of the Wild West. The construction of this railroad, begun with hopes of progress and prosperity, turned into a tale of mysterious disappearances, phantom trains, and unknown forces guarding this place. The enigma of these lands continues to attract explorers and adventurers, ready to unravel the mystery lurking behind the eerie tracks and the vanished trains, eternally gliding along rails that don't exist. The mysticism of the old mining town of Cricket Hill. Hidden among the hills and ravines of central Colorado, the mining town of Cricket Hill was once a thriving silver and gold mining center. It attracted thousands of adventurers seeking to make their fortunes, and witnessed not only wealth, but also numerous tragedies, which over time have acquired a mystical quality. Today, Cricket Hill is nothing but abandoned buildings, empty streets, and forgotten mines. But behind this shadow lies one of the most enigmatic stories of the Wild West. The town was founded in the 1860s when vast silver deposits were discovered in these mountains. Miners and entrepreneurs soon flocked here, and within a few years, Cricket Hill had become a thriving town with a population of over 3,000. All was well until one day in the 1870s, when a series of strange events occurred, causing the town to rapidly empty out. It all began when a group of miners working in one of the city's largest mines reported the disappearance of one of their comrades. Nothing unusual happened during the first few days of his disappearance, but after a few weeks, strange things began to happen. It was said that the miner had been spotted a few days before his disappearance in a local tavern where he sat, seemingly in a deep trance, staring into space. He told strange stories about voices from the earth and hearing footsteps in the mine, even though no one was around. A few days later, according to his comrades, the miner disappeared, and his tools and personal belongings were abandoned in the mine. A rescue expedition yielded no results, and soon rumors began to spread that not only precious metals, but also something far more dangerous lurked beneath the city. But that was only the beginning. A month later, a group of miners working in another mine disappeared in the same manner. First one person disappeared, then another, and soon the remaining miners began claiming to hear strange sounds in the underground tunnels, the grinding of metal, whispers, and even voices speaking to them. But when they tried to investigate, they found nothing, only insane fear and despair. The tunnels seemed endless, and, strangest of all, no one could explain exactly how the mines could fill with water so quickly, even though a drainage system had been installed. The town of Cricket Hill continued to grow despite the losses, but with each passing year, it became an increasingly strange place. Locals, many of whom had lived there for decades, began to avoid certain parts of the town and the mines. At night, they heard strange knocks and footsteps on the empty streets, and sometimes lights appeared on the outskirts of town, which they claimed moved along the ground but disappeared as soon as anyone approached. But the strangest events occurred in the 1880s, when several families decided to leave the town after several children disappeared. Parents reported seeing their children in dreams, telling them they must leave, and also of their children disappearing into the most ordinary places, such as houses, gardens, and even around old mines. Some claimed to see human-like figures calling to their children, and the children themselves, they said, followed them into dark parts of the city. Against the backdrop of these horrific events, other miners and adventurers began arriving in the city, hoping to find untold riches. But everyone who attempted to explore these places encountered the same inexplicable phenomena. One of the last explorers who ventured into the abandoned mine in 1900 disappeared without a trace. He left behind a recording in which he described strange voices coming from the dark tunnels and how all attempts to explore the mine resulted in it becoming increasingly more confusing. The labyrinth of tunnels, he said, was changing, and the air itself became heavy, making breathing difficult. Shortly after the explorer's disappearance, his equipment and notes were found in the mine. However, according to those who discovered them, the notes were full of strange symbols that no one could decipher. One of the symbols was a drawing that suggested human figures surrounded by circles and lines, reminiscent of ancient ritual symbols. Despite the strange occurrences, local residents continued to avoid the mines and the remaining houses, and Cricket Hill itself gradually fell into disrepair. The official closure of the mines and the town's abandonment only reinforced the sense that the place was cursed. The legend of the town and its mines lived on, but only among the few who still believed the old stories. Today, Cricket Hill is a desolate land where only the wind reminds us of the times when it was bustling with life. But even today, those who venture into the area sometimes report hearing strange sounds in the stillness of the night. Knocks, whispers, footsteps, and ghostly lights. These events remain unexplained, and those who dare to unravel this mystery face the same fears as the miners of old. The mystery of Cricket Hill continues to haunt the minds of adventurers, for perhaps somewhere within its depths lie answers to questions long since lost, along with its inhabitants. The mystery of Dead Lake Green Jackson. Deep in the forests and swamps of northern New Mexico, nestled among majestic mountain ranges, lies Green Jackson Lake. At first glance, it appears no different from hundreds of other bodies of water in the area. Clear blue water, framed by dense trees and tranquil shores. However, despite its picturesque beauty, this lake is shrouded in dark legends, and locals avoid it, especially at night. According to legend, in the late 19th century, when the Wild West was still wild and the wilderness was brutal, a small settlement stood on the lake's shores. The town, founded in 1880, was known for its farms and trading posts, but life there was far from tranquil. Locals claimed the lake was sacred to the native Indians, who had lived in the area for a long time before white settlers arrived. It is said that when the settlement was founded, Native Americans warned the locals not to disturb the lake's waters. Legend said the lake's waters were living, and that those who dared to disturb them would be punished. But the settlers ignored the warnings. They began digging wells, planting fields, and building houses right by the lake, each year violating the sacred boundaries established by the Native Americans. One summer day in 1892, when the settlers were busy farming, a strange incident occurred. One of the women working on a farm near the lake decided to go to the water to collect water for washing. As she approached the lake, she saw strange waves moving against the current. Within minutes, the water in the lake rose and enveloped the entire shoreline. The woman, frightened, ran back to the village, but soon after, something far more terrifying happened. Later that day, the village was flooded. The lake's waters rushed into the houses, destroying everything in their path. Almost all the buildings were washed away, and several residents died. But the strangest thing happened to those who managed to escape. They all began to lose their minds, and many claimed to hear a voice from the water, whispering their names, calling them back to the lake. After this incident, the village was abandoned, and the lake acquired a sinister reputation. Soon, people began to say the place was cursed. Locals claimed that those who dared approach the lake felt an inexplicable presence. Many reported hearing strange whispers, as if someone were calling them from the depths of the water. But when they approached, everything disappeared, leaving only the lake's quiet surface. There were also stories of local children disappearing without a trace while playing by the water. In one such case, in 1905, a boy playing on the shore jumped into the lake and never returned. His body was never found, and to this day, no one can explain what happened. The boy's mother claimed to have seen him being pulled underwater by an invisible force, but when she rushed to save him, the water around him began to cloud over, and the child's figure vanished. In the following years, the lake continued to attract attention, but those who dared to explore its waters encountered the same strange phenomena. One of the most recent cases occurred in the 1920s, when a group of researchers studying the lake's hydrology claimed to have discovered strange formations resembling ancient ruins in the lake's depths. Some stones were carved in such a way that they appeared to be part of an ancient structure hidden beneath the water. Following these discoveries, the lake became a focus not only for scientific, but also for mystical research. Theories that a civilization once existed here, destroyed by water disasters, became more popular. Some claim that the lake is an ancient Native American cemetery, or a site where water magic rituals were performed in ancient times. Today, Green Jackson Lake remains a dark and mysterious place, shrouded in legend and fear. People who decide to walk along its shores often return with a feeling of not being alone. The lake's water seems alive, as if it harbors something ancient and powerful that refuses to be discovered. The lake's mystery continues to captivate explorers and travelers, but those who dare to return to its waters encounter mysterious forces that remain hidden in the dark depths of this enigmatic place. The mystery of the lost Ocolis Station. On the border of Texas and Arizona, amidst harsh deserts and empty plains, lies one of the most mysterious places, one that still haunts everyone who has heard of it. It's a lost train station known as Fox's Eye, which once served as an important hub on the railroad, connecting several key towns in the Wild West. However, as time passed, the station was abandoned, and its disappearance became one of the most mystical enigmas. Okolee Station was built in 1878 as part of a railroad line that ran through the desert. It was intended to provide support for trains, and also serve as a rest stop for travelers passing through this dangerous and difficult region. Several houses and shops were located near the station, along with a small post office. However, soon after the station was built, strange events began to occur. At first, everything seemed normal, but after a few months, Okolee Station became a hotspot for disappearances. At first, it was just lone travelers who vanished after stopping at the station. Then several track maintenance workers disappeared, and later, the railroad workers themselves. When one of the expeditions set out to search for the missing, they discovered an empty station. All the buildings were intact, but in fact, they looked as if someone had just left, leaving everything unchanged. Tickets for the station had been sold out several days before the disappearance, and no one could explain how it could have happened. According to those returning from the scene, the air around the station was unusually heavy, and the rustling sounds in the empty buildings were strange and unnatural. As rumors of the missing station spread, locals began reporting seeing strange lights in the area, especially at night. People claimed to see lights moving along the tracks, as if someone were walking along the line. But when they tried to get closer, the lights disappeared and the station was once again plunged into emptiness. These lights became known as the Fox's Eye lights and became an integral part of local legends. Some locals believed the station was cursed and that its abandonment was due to the land on which it was built being already tainted. Even before the station was built, local Native Americans warned that the land was guarded by spirits and that those who dared build there would be punished. Locals often told stories of ancient Native American rituals taking place in the area around the station, and that the site was sacred to the tribes living on the land. The legend that the Okolee Station was the site where the earth swallowed people never went away. Many researchers, archaeologists, and paranormal enthusiasts tried to unravel this mystery. One of the most recent expeditions to explore the station yielded strange results. Scientists using cutting-edge equipment noticed that instruments at the station site were becoming unstable. They were showing strange fluctuations, even when there was no apparent reason for them. Subsequently, documents found in the railway company archives revealed that, during the station's active period, several instances occurred where passenger trains passed by, but were unable to proceed because the station was blocked. Passengers on the trains reported seeing shadowy figures on the platform, seemingly asking for help, but when they attempted to stop and help, the train moved on and all the figures disappeared. Locals claim that Okolee Station is still a cursed place, and that at night, footsteps and strange sounds can be heard as if someone were still working on the railroad tracks. But no one dares to explore the place further, as even after numerous investigations, no one has been able to explain what happened to those who once lived and worked at the station. Today, Fox's Eye is nothing more than an empty station with forgotten tracks and crumbling buildings hidden from the world. However, it continues to attract the attention of those who believe in the supernatural and seek answers to the questions this abandoned station left behind. The mystery of the missing people and strange events surrounding the station remains one of the most haunting stories of the Wild West. And perhaps, one day, someone brave enough to walk the railroad line will find answers to the questions that still haunt those seeking to unravel this terrifying and inexplicable enigma. The mystery of the glowing stones of Scala Vu. Wu Rock, located deep in the Arizona desert, has always been a mysterious place for those who dare to explore it. These desert hills and mountains are cut by canyons and deep gorges, but the most mystical of all are the glowing stones discovered at Wu Rock in the late 19th century. The story of these stones attracts the attention of not only archaeologists but also adventurers, those interested in the paranormal, and those seeking answers to the mysteries of the Wild West. The legend of the stones begins in the 1880s, when a small group of miners, searching for silver and gold, stumbled upon mysterious stones emitting a faint glow. At first, the miners dismissed it as a natural phenomenon, perhaps a reflection from certain minerals or specific rocks, but their attention was drawn to one strange feature. The stones didn't disappear, but continued to glow even on dark nights. Moreover, this light wasn't simply dim, like reflected moonlight, but strangely alive, shifting, and pulsating. As the miners explored the area, strange things began to happen. The The next morning, when one of them tried to approach the stones, he was greeted by such cold that his breath turned to steam. Some of the miners claimed to see figures standing among the stones, motionless, as if they were part of the stone itself. These figures seemed to come to life, their outlines becoming brighter and more distinct as the miners approached. But as soon as they tried to get closer, the figures vanished into thin air, and the light from the stones grew dimmer. When several people decided to explore the stones further, they discovered that those within their radiation radius began to behave strangely. Some developed headaches, while others complained of auditory hallucinations, hearing strange noises and whispers emanating directly from the stones. One miner even claimed to hear the stones whispering in an unknown language, but despite his efforts, he was unable to decipher the words. This attracted the attention of researchers, and scientists and archaeologists were soon dispatched to the site. Research revealed that the stones did indeed have unusual chemical and mineralogical properties. Some of them emitted a faint heat that could not be explained by modern knowledge. The stones were composed of unknown rocks that could not be found naturally in the region. Their structure was so unique that many experts speculated that it could be the result of ancient technologies or even an extraterrestrial origin. But what's even more mysterious is that the local Native Americans, who lived in these areas long before the arrival of Europeans, avoided these stones. According to legend, these stones were gifts from heavenly beings who supposedly arrived in these parts many centuries ago. The Native Americans considered these stones sacred and dangerous, claiming they could be used as a portal to communicate with ancestral spirits. The stones themselves, according to tribal elders, were a place of power, and anyone who dared disturb their peace would be punished. It was said that this place brought death to those who attempted to study it, much less take anything from the stones. Another strange aspect was the fact that, despite modern research, no one could find a single document or reference to who left these stones or why they were placed in such a remote and inaccessible location. This led to numerous theories. Some believed that an ancient culture, perhaps a vanished civilization, left these stones as a reminder of its existence. Others claimed that the stones were part of some ritual that concealed their true purpose. Incredibly, in recent decades, after technology made it possible to study the stones using radio waves and other methods, even stranger anomalies were discovered. The stones not only glowed, but also emitted weak electromagnetic fields that disrupted the operation of devices in their immediate vicinity. This discovery led to a new theory that the stones may be ancient devices used to transmit energy or signals. Some even hypothesized that the stones could have been used to create a high-energy field that could act as a kind of protective shield. But despite the researchers' best efforts, none of these hypotheses were proven. The stones continued to be a source of mystery, and soon research teams studying them began encountering the same unexplained phenomena as the miners 100 years earlier. Local residents continued to avoid the area, believing it cursed. Many claimed that even approaching the stones was a risk to their lives. The lights that once attracted the attention of explorers have now become part of local mythology. It is said that at night, when the sky darkens and the moonlight is hidden behind the clouds, the stones begin to emit not only light, but also a strange hum. Those who dare to get too close report feeling the stones come alive, as if they were trying to convey something important. But as soon as they begin to move, everything vanishes, leaving only silence. Thus continues the story of these stones, which, despite all modern technology and the efforts of scientists, remain one of the most enigmatic parts of the Wild West. The mystery of the glowing stones of Scala Wu remains unsolved, and anyone who tries to unravel it faces the same questions as those who sought answers decades ago. The mystery of the ominous Stanley Fortress. In northern Texas, in the heart of the desert plains, stands the abandoned Stanley Fort, one of the most mystical and dangerous places associated with the Wild West. Once, in the late 19th century, this fort was an important outpost in the fight against Native American tribes and local bandits. However, despite its strategic importance, Stanley Fort acquired a more sinister reputation when strange and inexplicable events began to occur there, gradually becoming part of local legends and myths. It all began in the 1870s when the fort was built in response to threats from local Native American tribes resisting the expansion of white settlers. A strategically advantageous location was chosen on a hill overlooking all nearby territories. Fort Stanley was intended to serve as a center of defense and control, and for many years it served its purpose. But with each passing year, as new settlers and bandits arrived intensifying, strange events began to occur that could not be explained. First and foremost, there were rumors of nocturnal phenomena. Lieutenants and soldiers on duty at night began reporting strange silhouettes appearing in the darkness, moving along the fortress walls. At first, they mistook them for Indians or enemies, but when they approached, no one could find any traces. There were also instances when guards heard strange footsteps, but when they opened doors or windows to check who was outside, they were met with dead silence. One of the most notorious incidents occurred in 1881, when an entire squad assigned to patrol the fortress vanished overnight. Their bodies were never found, and their equipment was left behind, as if they had simply vanished into thin air. Some of the soldiers called in as replacements claimed to have felt a strong, cold aura at the scene of their disappearance, and heard strange sounds, like faint whispers emanating from the void. Rumors of a curse on Fort Stanley quickly spread among local residents and military personnel. It was said that the land on which the fort was built was connected to ancient spirits who could not forgive those who had invaded it. Legends claimed that Native American tribes had once inhabited the area, but after years of warfare, they were defeated, but their spirits remained, haunting those who dared to settle there. Subsequently, several expeditions organized to explore this fort encountered the same strange events. One such expedition was a group of archaeologists who arrived here in 1930 to explore the remains of the fort and attempt to decipher its connection to Native American tribes. One evening, in the midst of their work, the researchers discovered strange markings on the walls of the fort's underground passages. These markings, which looked like symbols, were embedded in the stones, and their form did not resemble any known Native American writing system. The group members began documenting these markings, but soon began to feel a strange uneasiness, and many declared they could not remain in these underground chambers. That evening, when they attempted to leave the fort, part of the group disappeared. Their last traces led them to a high hill near the fort, where several severed ropes were found, left on the rocks, as if someone had tried to flee the area in a hurry. When a rescue party arrived a few days later, they found only empty tents, equipment, and books belonging to the explorers. But the men were nowhere to be found. These events led to the fortress's final abandonment. Despite attempts to explore the remains and find answers to questions about the missing soldiers and archaeologists, Stanley Fortress continued to be a place full of strange and mystical phenomena. Locals claimed to feel a pull when passing by the fortress at night, but anyone who attempted to enter after sunset soon returned with terror in their eyes, reporting strange sounds and figures seen in the dark corners of the ruined walls. Stanley Fortress remains a mysterious place to this day. Despite being officially abandoned over a century ago, many believe that mysterious forces hidden within its walls still haunt the place. Those who dare approach report a strange sense of unease and a feeling of being watched, and the sounds heard around it at night leave no doubt that not all is at peace. The mystery of Stanley Fortress is one of the darkest and most enigmatic in the Wild West, and it continues to haunt those willing to seek answers in these eerie ruins. The mystery of the lost Fortress Logan. Hidden among the mountain ranges of Utah, in one of its most remote corners lies Fort Logan, a place that has long remained a mystery to explorers and locals. The history of this fort, like many others in the Wild West, is shrouded in mystery, and the events that took place within its walls still evoke feelings of unease and fear. Built in the late 19th century as a defensive fort to protect the area from Indian attacks and bandits, the fort soon became famous for the disappearance of all its inhabitants. Since then, Fort Logan has become the subject of numerous myths and legends. It all began in 1889, when the U.S. Army decided to strengthen its position in the West. Fort Logan was built on a high hill with a magnificent view of the surrounding area. This location was considered strategically important, as it allowed for the control of bandits and Indians who were attempting to resist the expansion of white settlers. The fort was equipped with everything necessary: cannons, food supplies, and a fairly strong guard. However, several months after construction was completed, something strange began to happen. One by one, soldiers and officers serving in the fortress began to disappear. Initially, the disappearances were dismissed as coincidences. Some would leave for night duty and never return, while others simply vanished during patrols. However, residents of nearby villages soon began to notice something more terrifying happening in the fortress area. Some people passing by the fortress at night reported strange lights appearing on the high walls, as well as quiet sounds coming from empty rooms. They said they saw figures standing guard, but when they tried to approach, these figures disappeared. But the strangest thing was that the fortress was actually empty. During the search for the missing people, only their personal belongings were found: weapons, clothing, and household items, left in disarray. However, not a single body was found. Several weeks after several groups disappeared, the army sent a team to investigate, but none of these people returned. When rescuers arrived at the fort, they found only empty buildings, crumblings, and abandoned. But what they found inside astonished them. Some of the fort's walls were covered in strange symbols, unlike any known script, and in one of the halls, an ancient stone altar inscribed with incomprehensible signs was discovered. These signs were associated with symbols used in the rituals of ancient Native American tribes, and many researchers began to suspect that the fort was built on sacred land, forbidden to outsiders. When excavations began at the fortress, locals began reporting even stranger phenomena. They said that at night, near the fortress, strange sounds could be heard, whispers and groans, as if someone were calling for help. These sounds became especially loud at night, when the moon illuminated the surrounding area. Some claimed to see the figures of soldiers, but they disappeared as soon as they approached. Even more eerie was the fact that people who tried to spend the night in these areas often woke up with the feeling that someone was watching them. Eventually, the fortress was abandoned and left alone, but the events that took place within it continued to live on in local legends. To this day, no one can say for sure what happened to those who disappeared. Some theorize that these disappearances were connected to ancient spirits guarding the land. According to one version, the force that guarded the fortress was so powerful that it could take all the souls of those who dared to stand in its way. Since then, Fort Logan has become a symbol of mystical power, frightening and alluring. Those who venture through these lands report feeling a strange atmosphere, as if multiple realities intersect. The mystery of the missing soldiers and officers remains unsolved, and the fort itself remains abandoned, concealing the unsolved mysteries of the Wild West. This place continues to attract lovers of mystery and adventure, but anyone who dares approach these ruined walls encounters the same mysterious phenomena that haunt those who once visited. Fort Logan, shrouded in myth and legend, remains one of the most enigmatic places in the Wild West, where the vanished not only left traces, but also became part of something darker and more mystical than just a forgotten structure. And perhaps this very land continues to hold the answer to questions that have never been answered. The riddle of Bellybor. In northeastern Arizona, in the heart of the desert, lies a mysterious place known to locals as White Forest. This place has long been the subject of numerous rumors and tales, intertwining reality and fantasy. White Forest is more than just an abandoned area. It has become a symbol of vanished settlements, cursed lands, and a force beyond understanding. It all began in the 1890s when a small farm was founded in the region, named Bailey Boar, after a tree that stood next to the owner's house. This tree was unique. Its bark was snow white and shiny, as if blinding with its light, and its branches seemed to pierce the sky. Locals considered this tree special and associated it with local legends about spiritual guardians protecting the land. Soon a small settlement sprang up around the tree, and farmers began cultivating the land, raising cattle, and trading with neighboring villages. However, as with other settlements in the Wild West, White Forest didn't remain peaceful for long. Strange events soon began to occur. First, there were the unexplained disappearances of animals, then the abduction of people who vanished without a trace, disappearing over the horizon and never returning. One of the most mysterious disappearances was that of the Walters family, who were among the first settlers in the area. The Walters family lived on the farm for about 2 years, but one night their house was found empty. No one had seen them, and despite a long search, no trace of their presence was found. The only thing left was a mysterious note they left on the table. The note read, "We followed the tree. It calls us." This mysterious message could not help but cause shock and fear. After all, everyone knew that this tree, the White Forest, had some kind of mystical power. It seemed to draw people, causing them to lose their minds and follow it, as if it were something sacred but dangerous. After the Walters family disappeared, rumors began circulating about the farm. It was said that at night, the tree would glow brightly, as if on fire, and a strange, almost elusive noise would be heard in its branches. Some claimed to have seen strange figures in the branches of the White Forest, slowly moving and disappearing as soon as anyone tried to approach them. Local Native Americans considered the tree sacred and dangerous, warning settlers that it protected not only the land but also the spirits that inhabited the area. When the first explorers arrived at this location, they encountered the same unexplained phenomena. When they approached the tree, they felt a strange pressure and a terrible uneasiness, and some began to hear whispers. Those who tried to approach the tree to study it reported feeling as if someone was calling them, and each time they tried to return, their path became increasingly confusing. White Forest soon became known as one of the most dangerous places in the Wild West. Many adventurers and scientists who decided to explore this place disappeared without a trace. Soon, a theory arose that hidden tunnels stretching deep into the earth were located in this area, and that White Forest might be the entrance to these tunnels, leading to other worlds, but no one could find any evidence of this. One of the strangest stories about belly boar concerns a group of scientists who, in the early 20th century, decided to conduct research in the area to understand the disappearance phenomenon. They used the latest scientific instruments to measure any anomalies and detect possible electrical fields or magnetic influences that could explain the strange occurrences. But the deeper they delved into the forest, the stronger the feeling became that they were not alone. Suddenly, they discovered several ancient stone structures reminiscent of Native American sanctuaries. These stones were carved with symbols that, the scientists claimed, bore no connection to any known culture. The stones were covered in strange designs resembling stars and human figures, which they could not associate with known symbols. The last person to spend the night near Bailey Boar was an explorer named Edward Jameson. He left several notes claiming to have seen people sitting under a tree, their silhouettes slightly translucent, their eyes glowing in the darkness. As he approached, the people disappeared. Before leaving, he wrote in his journal, "This tree is not only alive, it senses us, and it will not let go of those who dare approach." After this, Jameson vanished, and no trace of him was ever found. Today, Belly Boar remains a deserted place. It's said that the site where houses once stood is now empty, and the tree itself seems to glow even more brightly on dark nights. Locals still avoid the area, and those who dare to try to unravel the mystery encounter the same unexplained occurrences. The mystery of Belly Boar remains unsolved, and the tree itself remains not only history, but also something far more mystical and frightening than we could ever imagine. The mystery of the Silver Fortress on Misty Hill. Among abandoned mines and ancient rock formations in central Nevada, amid forests and nearly impassable canyons, lies one of the most mysterious strongholds of the Wild West, Silver Fortress on Misty Hill. Hidden from prying eyes, this place is known only to those who dare to unravel its mysteries. It has long attracted the attention of adventurers, archaeologists, and paranormal investigators. The legend of Silver Fortress begins in the 1860s and remains one of the most mystical stories of the Wild West. According to local accounts, large silver deposits were discovered in this area in the early 19th century. Miners and settlers soon arrived, hoping to find riches. One of the most prominent figures in this region was a miner named Jeremy Walker. His reputation was as brutal as the Wild West itself. Considered not only a master of his craft, but also a seasoned warrior, Jeremy immediately became the head of one of the most successful mines in the region. In the 1860s, Jeremy, having become rich thanks to silver deposits, decided to build a fort in this area. He believed the location was not only suitable for construction, but also gave him a strategic advantage over bandits and local Indians. He was confident that his fort would serve not only as a defensive fort, but also as a symbol of his influence over the area. Construction of the fort took several years, and soon a powerful fortification arose on Misty Hill, which, according to people, looked like a citadel rising amid the mountains and forests. However, this is where the story of Jeremy and his fortress took a strange turn. From the moment construction was completed, strange events began to occur, leading to the mysterious disappearance of the fortress itself and all its inhabitants. First, several miners working in a nearby mine vanished. Then the soldiers guarding the fortress disappeared as well. When search parties arrived to determine what had happened, they found only empty rooms, untouched, and just as they had been the day they were last used. Some tables were set as if for dinner, cups and books sat on the shelves, and coals glowed in the fireplaces, as if someone had just abandoned the fortress before nightfall. The mystery didn't end there. With each passing month, rumors of mysterious disappearances grew stronger. Visitors to the area reported strange visions and unusual sounds emanating from Misty Hill. Some claimed to see lights hovering in the air, while others claimed to hear footsteps, as if someone were watching them. But when they tried to get closer, everything vanished, leaving behind only an empty, frantic silence. Particularly disturbing was the fact that no one who attempted to explore the place ever returned. Those who did venture back claimed that some invisible force stood in their way, preventing them from proceeding further. The local Native Americans who had lived in these areas for centuries warned people that the land on Misty Hill was cursed. They believed these lands were protected by the spirits of their ancestors, and those who tried to violate this prohibition met their fate in this darkness. Even in ancient times, these lands were used for rituals dedicated to the ancient gods, and according to their beliefs, the spirits forbade anyone from disturbing this sacred order. The search intensified with each passing year, but answers remained elusive. Why did the miners disappear? Why did all the soldiers guarding the fortress vanish? Why couldn't search parties find a single body, even though the disappearance sites were well known? Visitors to these areas encountered the same inexplicable occurrences. They heard strange voices in the night, saw glimmers in the dark corners of the fortress, and those who ventured into the dungeons vanished, leaving only traces on the walls. One of the last known cases was the disappearance of a group of explorers who had traveled to Misty Hill in the 1920s. The explorers claimed to have found strange symbols carved on stone slabs in ancient underground catacombs that could not be explained. These symbols resembled languages that did not exist in known writing, and some of them actually spoke of ancient powers hidden in this place. But what's most bizarre is that on the same day the researchers left Misty Hill, all traces of their presence vanished. Although search parties returned a few days later, no evidence was found at the site other than empty tents and equipment. Some of the searchers who returned from the area claimed to have seen the silhouette of a figure standing in the dark shadows at the edge of the forest. But as soon as they attempted to approach, the figure vanished, leaving behind only a feeling of unease and fear. Today, Misty Hill and its fortress remain a forgotten and mysterious place. Locals continue to avoid the area, and those who venture there often encounter the same strange phenomena: cold winds, strange noises, and the feeling of being watched. The mystery of Stanley's vanished fortress and the strange events that occurred on Misty Hill remains unsolved. However, those who dare to explore the place always sense that something far more powerful lurks in these lands than just an abandoned fortress. The mystery of the Island of Dead Travelers. In western Arizona, in the heart of vast deserts and mountain ranges, there exists a mysterious place few dare to speak of, and those who have ventured through its confines have returned with incredible tales of mysterious disappearances and unexplained phenomena. This place is known as Dead Travelers Island, a forgotten settlement that was originally intended to be an important trading and strategic hub along the desert route. However, after a series of unexplained events and disappearances, it was abandoned, and since then its story has become part of myths and rumors, generating more than one wave of fear among locals. In the 1860s, when the Sonoran Desert was still sparsely populated, several groups of settlers decided to build a small settlement in the area, hoping their efforts would be rewarded with natural resources. One of the most famous settlers, Jonathan Grayson, was an experienced trader who founded Dead Travelers Island, believing it would be an excellent location for trading with Native Americans and explorers. He chose a site near a body of water, on an island surrounded by cliffs, which would provide protection from possible attacks. But in the settlement's very first year, strange events began to occur. At first, these were minor occurrences: missing supplies, strange noises at night resembling footsteps, though there was no one around. But then people began to disappear. First, a trader, then several workers building houses, and finally in 1870, the entire Grayson family. Only personal belongings were found in their homes, seemingly abandoned in a hurry. Dropped letters and objects they had used lay on the floor. Elderly Native Americans living nearby claimed to have seen a strange fire burning on the island, but when they tried to approach, everything vanished. With each passing year, disappearances became more frequent, and many who attempted to return to the Island of Dead Travelers never returned. Legends began to spread that the island was cursed, that its lands hid a secret that neither man nor nature could overcome. According to locals, those who traveled to the island were doomed to disappear, their souls becoming part of the dark energy that permeated this sliver of land. Stories of what happened on the island grew increasingly bizarre. One of the most famous accounts came from a man named Edward Clark, one of the last explorers to venture to the island of dead travelers. Clark was a renowned archaeologist who traveled the Wild West in search of ancient artifacts, and his final writings became some of the most terrifying accounts of the place. In his journal, Clark detailed how he reached the island following old maps. Upon arrival, he discovered strange ruins that appeared significantly older than anything that could have been built by settlers. Surrounding the ruins were stone pillars carved in the shapes of people and animals that could not be associated with local Native American tribes. These statues were covered in strange symbols and drawings that had no parallel in known archaeological cultures. As Clark delved deeper into the island, he felt the atmosphere around him grow heavier. He claimed to hear a strange whisper-like sound emanating from the ground. This sound grew louder until it became audible, like human voices. One of the recorded fragments in his diary read, "I hear them. They're calling me. But what do they want?" The next day, as Clark's group attempted to leave the island, they discovered all traces had vanished. Maps became useless, compasses began showing incorrect directions, and the island seemed to be shifting its position. The noises Clark had heard during the night became increasingly violent, and those attempting to return reported feeling a strange physical pain, as if something invisible were pulling them back toward the island's center. After Clark's expedition disappeared, the search party sent to rescue him failed to find either his body or any trace of him. They found only his journal and a few photographs depicting the same figures seen on the island, but with one difference. The photographs showed strange reflections and luminous spots that could not be explained by any instrument or light. After reading the journal entries, the rescuers returned deeply troubled. They claimed to have felt the fog surrounding the island literally creep into their heads, filling their consciousness with fear and anxiety. Today, Dead Travelers Island remains one of the most mystical and mysterious spots on the map of the Wild West. Locals have long avoided this place, and those who decide to explore it often encounter unexplained phenomena such as strange lights, ghostly figures, and even a feeling that the island refuses to let go of those who dare to trespass. The mystery of the island and its vanished people continues to captivate adventurers and explorers, but for centuries it has remained unsolved. Perhaps this land conceals more ancient and powerful forces that do not wish for its secrets to be unraveled. The mystery of Dead Travelers Island remains one of the most enigmatic and terrifying places in the Wild West, where nature and supernatural forces intertwine in a darkness that cannot be illuminated by either light or reason. The mysteries of the Wild West are not only tales of gold prospecting, the fates of great heroes, and tragedies that have left their mark on history, but also mysterious phenomena that continue to stir the imagination. These places, part of mythology and oral traditions, serve not only as historical monuments, but also as grim reminders that some parts of our land conceal a power that humanity cannot always control. These stories, from ghost trains in the Rockies to vanished villages and mysterious rivers, are interwoven with mysterious disappearances, unexplained occurrences, and mystical events. Many of them defy scientific explanation, but they leave behind an air of mystery that may never be fully resolved. The mysteries that surround these places remain unsolved and continue to beckon those seeking answers, whether archaeologists, explorers, or simply adventurers. The Wild West was not only a place of brutal battles and the quest for riches, but also an arena where nature and supernatural forces engaged in their own incomprehensible conflict. These stories reflect not only man's struggle with the world, but also the very idea that the Earth, with its ancient forces, may hold more secrets than we can comprehend. And while many of these stories have become part of myth, they still live on in the tales of those who dare to follow in the dark footsteps of the past. The mysteries of the Wild West remind us that some mysteries may never be solved, and that there are things best left hidden because their solution may be too terrible to understand. Thus, the stories, like the lands where they took place, retain their mystical atmosphere. The sands, mountains, and rivers of the Wild West will continue to hold their secrets, reminding us of the grandeur, beauty, and unexplored horizons that remain beyond the reach of the human mind.